Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the December 5th, 2024 Northampton City Council meeting. I'm Alex Jarrett. As City Council President, I'll be presiding, along with Vice President Rachel Maori. This meeting and all participating in person and on Zoom will be audio and video recorded, and the meeting can also be watched on Comcast Channel 15 or by streaming on Northampton Open Media's YouTube channel. I will call the council to order. Can you take the roll, please?
Sure. Councillor Dubbs.
Here.
Councillor Elkins.
Here.
Councillor Jarrett.
Here.
Councillor Clemmer.
Here.
Councillor Labarge.
Here.
Councillor Maori.
Here.
Councillor Moore.
Here.
Councillor Perry.
Here.
And Councillor Rothenberg.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Tonight's highlights include the presentation of the Northampton Reparations Study Commission's preliminary report, a review of the request for proposals for 33 King Street, reprogramming orders for school, parking garage, and IT capital projects, a fossil fuel-free construction ordinance, and an ordinance relative to multi-way stop signs on Hatfield Street at Cook Avenue. Before we get to public comment, there's an announcement of a public hearing. It is on 24.158, a National Grid poll petition for Pleasant Street. Per Mass General Law, Chapter 166, Section 22, the Northampton City Council will hold a public hearing on Thursday, December 19th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Here. And on National Grid's petition to install one singly owned pole on Pleasant Street. And you can find instructions for accessing the hearing on the December 19th City Council agenda. And we will hear all persons who wish to be heard thereon. Public comment. So if you wish to make a public comment, you can sign up at the sheet at the podium. And if you're on Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature, which is in the bottom menu bar. Click on react and then raise hand. And if you're having trouble raising your virtual hand, you can turn on your video and physically raise your hand. You can also submit a written public comment to citycouncil@northamptonma.gov. And it will be sent to all councilors and will be part of the public record. So I'm going to alternate between people who are in the room and people on Zoom. And before you begin, please state your name and your city or town for the public record. We limit comments to a maximum of 2 minutes to ensure everyone has an equal opportunity to speak. And then after 2 minutes, I'll ask you to finish your sentence. According to council rules, we don't respond during public comment. It is your time to speak. And our rules also state that councilors and members of the public shall conduct themselves with civility and respect at all times. And your protected speech is a constitutional right, one that we ask you to wield with consideration and respect, and with recognition that the public space that grants you that freedom is shared equally by everyone. You can speak on any topic, doesn't need to be an item on the agenda, and all the comments are to be directed to the council. The first person here in the room is Ruthie Woodring. Your name and city or town, please.
I'm Ruthie Woodring, and I live in Florence, came from Florence. I just want to remind everyone that the PVTA buses are free, still free, but first you have to catch them. And for the time management challenge, well, fortunately there's the rail trail, which is newly paved, very smooth, very smooth. I took it on a scooter, a smaller wheeled scooter this evening, but I imagine it's also very smooth for walkers and strollers and wheelchairs and inline skates and skateboards and all the other contraptions that people have these days. Except for it's a little rough, with the little branches blowing down from the current little windstorm. But I wanted to come and just say that I'm excited to hear about the Commission on Reparations report, and I want to support that work. Thank you all.
Thank you. Next on Zoom is Massaborski. Your name and city or town, please.
Can you hear me?
We can. Welcome.
Okay, great. Thank you. My name is Melissa Macaborski. I live in Northampton. I just wanted to remind everyone on the council tonight that we are asking for a mid-year appropriation for the public schools. We'll see what happens with that. The other thing I'm asking is if the council can please pay close attention to the financial orders that are on the agenda for tonight, particularly the one involving the school. There's two for the schools. I'm not talking about the one for the grounds, although it would be nice if we had some more information specifically about what that money was going to be spent on. I'm talking about the one about the ERV system for the Leeds cafeteria and moving money from some schools to that purpose. I would just like to have some transparency and explanation from either the mayor or the city council about any plans for school consolidation and how, if you're already starting to move money around at this point, has the community been asked what they think? What are their ideas? Do they agree with the plan before you start moving the money around and putting that into motion? Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. That was the only person signed up on the sheet. I don't have other people signed up on the sheet.
Yeah.
Okay, Marcia, would you like to go? Are you the only person?
Yeah, now.
Okay, we'll just leave it then. Go ahead. Your name and city or town, please.
First of all, I'm Marcia Morris, and I am from Northampton. And I just wanted to remind all the city councilors that this Saturday, the Northampton Reparations Commission is having our first official activity with what we're calling the RRR, which is the Reparations Religious Roundtable. And I'm hoping that all intend to come. It's going to be a lovely evening. The doors open at 5:45. There'll be a welcoming and then introduction for the purpose of the screening of acts of reparation. And then there'll be a brief intermission, and then our chairperson, who is back there, Usman Power Green, and Renika Tamklo will be speaking, talking about answering any questions on the history of reparations as we know it in the northern area, in particular in Northampton, and also be giving comments. And there will be an introduction by several of the people who helped to put this together. We're just undergirding the work. This is the first work of the RRR, which we're then going to be in communication with them to help us to get the word out about our 100 Black person strategy, which is to engage 100 active Black people in a conversation about reparations for Northampton. And so I just wanted to bring everyone's attention to that. And that will be December 7th, which is this Saturday, and it'll be at the Unitarian Church. And think of it as a night out with your gal or your guy. Since there'll be an intermission, you can have some coffee and snacks. And it'll be a time for us to do some learning as a community. And then I'll bring updates on what we're working on, because we will have a full debriefing meeting and then let you know what our work will be going forward. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. I also wanted to read something someone asked me, because in talking about reparations, both the joys and the frustrations of working on this project, and I said I would do that. They had a chance to read the report, and they say, this report acknowledges history, but it is history that comes with a bill. Reparations are not charity, they are justice. Symbolic gestures and half measures will not suffice for centuries of theft, murder, exploitation, and rape. If the people of Northampton truly seek to repair the harm, they must do it in ways that restore the stolen wealth and power to the Black community. So I said I would read that, and I have it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on Zoom is Jessica Morris. Your name and city or town, please.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Jessica Morris. I live in Northampton. And I wanted to thank the City Council for putting the temporary four-way stop at the intersection of Cook Avenue and Hatfield Street, and very, very strongly request that you make that a permanent four-way stop. For 30 years, the people of our neighborhood have tried to make that a safer intersection. For any of you who have driven, especially leaving the Lake Fitzgerald Conservation Area and driving out, you will know that there is almost no visibility to the right and limited visibility to the left. There has been at least one fatality at that intersection, and the police department has determined that it is so unsafe that school buses cannot stop there and children cannot walk across it. The temporary four-way stop sign has been extremely successful. It is delightful not to have to take my life into my hands every time I leave my neighborhood. And I know at public comment I only speak for myself, but I would like to say that there is uniform support from everyone who has to go through that intersection and lives in this neighborhood. And I would really encourage you to make that a permanent way to keep all of us a little safer in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Meg Robbins.
Hiya, and thanks. Meg Robbins, Ward 4, Northampton. And I too am going to speak to an agenda item. 24171, the order to reprogram money to NPS Energy Project account, which the term NPS project account is news to the community. The mayor suggests these funds be diverted from the capital improvement plan for schools to this fund, ostensibly to realize some of the 2030 zero carbon plan. And I have some questions. I'd like to know which capital planning accounts these are being drawn from. We have only numbers. And if they were unspent, they were presumably earmarked critical for schools. Why would these schools need critical repairs and now not need critical repairs? Or is that $268,000 over budgeted estimates for CIP completed projects? Also, as Melissa said, is this about the consolidation plan or school closures or green futures, which are vaguely outlined in the superintendent's strategic plan that's still under detail wraps? The working group the superintendent said will study this has not yet even been created. Her roadshow did not share this project. What is the NPS Energy Project Fund? Who is it? Why hasn't this gone before the school committee first? My guess is the community who work and learn in our schools every day might want to have a voice in priorities. To my knowledge, this fund, this Energy Project Fund, has not been vetted by school committee nor community. And if this is from capital planning, who's presenting it to the community and who's on that committee, which I can't find on your website. Additionally, quickly, 24.172, also reprogramming of NPS projects to NPS grounds account. The $14,000 grounds money for Tony, NHS, and presumably Donna at DPW to buy a seat or aerator is likely a good idea. But I'm wondering about the $17,000 Tony gave in unspent funds from his budget FY24 to DPW for a study on organic last July. I don't believe the school committee organic turf ad hoc committee ever saw that report. And I'm wondering why we gave $17,000 here and now we're reallocating $14,000 there. I'm all for buying equipment, but not unless it comes with a plan and transparent bids. I'm hoping the NPS Energy Project Fund is only a first reading and we can learn more about this before your vote. Thanks.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to announcements from councilors and the mayor. Mayor.
Good evening, councilors. I want to remind everyone that the holiday stroll is going to be a week from tomorrow, a week from Friday, so that's Friday, December 13th. That's presented by the Downtown Northampton Association with support from the city, and I give great thanks to everybody who's involved in making this happen. So it's from 5 to 8 p.m., and it's a little bit of a different configuration from when we last had a stroll. It's from Crafts Avenue to Masonic Street, and it will include Pulaski Park. So I hope everyone will come down on the 13th and have some fun and merriment and be out in the street with everyone and ring in the holidays in that way. And I also want to make sure that people know that the Pearl Harbor Day ceremony is this Saturday, which is the 7th, at, excuse me, at 12:30 p.m., and that's at the Route 5 boat launch. And there'll be a reading of a proclamation in remembrance, and there's also a dropping of a ceremonial wreath that happens. So that's, again, 12:30 at the boat launch on Route 5 on this Saturday. Thanks.
Thanks. Councilors, any announcements? I have one. The mayor's office has let me know that they will be submitting the capital improvement program, and that will be published on December 19th, and the public hearing will then be Thursday, January 2nd, and that would be first reading as well. Okay, if there's no other oh, Councilor Perry.
This is the mayor reminded me, since there's a stroll every Saturday and Sunday during the holiday season, the Iron Horse is open, serving free hot chocolate, coffee, and tea for anyone who wants to stop by. So warm yourself up, do that. It's free to the public. Just come in, take a look, and enjoy our downtown.
Thank you. Okay, just checking our Zoom counselors. All right. That brings us to presentations. The Northampton Reparations Study Commission presentation of preliminary report, and we have Chair Usman Power Green. Welcome.
That is on. Good evening, everyone. I'm here in behalf of my colleagues, Jeremy Baker, Marissa Elkins, Felicia Lundquist, Renika Montgomery-Tumulpe, Marcia Morris, who's right here as well in the room, Bill Newman, Garrick Perry, to submit to the City Council the work we've done so far. I thought that I would read a little bit from the introduction and then, obviously take questions from anyone who has them about what we've been working on so far. And also I should mention too that, one of the most important parts of the preliminary report is the acknowledgement of all the entities that have taken their time to share their expertise with us. And so hopefully you all have a chance to make sure you look through that list and see people on there in your ward or other areas, because this work has certainly been collaborative. And actually, as Marcia mentioned, really, this sort of final piece will be even further engagement in the community and, being sure that we can capture as many voices as possible to study people's opinions about how to move forward with thinking about reparative work. Okay, so our shared understanding. The work of the Northampton Commission for the Study of Reparations begins with the shared understanding and acknowledgement that Northampton's history involves slavery, racial discrimination, and systematic racism. It is also the case that this city has a deep history of communities centered around abolition activism that include free black people, formerly enslaved, and white allies who contributed greatly to the cultural and historic fabric of Northampton and throughout the struggle against racial injustice locally, nationally, and globally. Northampton residents historically have risen up in protest and with activism. In the wake of the George Floyd murder in 2020 and the nationwide call for reform and reckoning for our shared racist past, the city of Northampton acted to answer the community's call to do more work toward racial justice. Mayor at the time, David Narkowitz, and the City Council created the Policing Review Commission. The council passed a resolution committing the city to combating systemic racism as a public health crisis. A resolution in support of and committing to actions at the federal, state, and local level to combat the public health crisis of systemic racism. In addition, the 2020 Special Committee of Review of Ordinances mandated that the city charter, and chaired by Councilor John T. Thorpe, Northampton's first black city councilor, focused particularly on zoning, rental housing, parking, nuisance laws, and land ownership that has historically perpetuated systemic racism in Northampton. At the time, all over the city, the Northampton residents were coming together to determine how they and their city could do more. It is still the case today that disproportionately more Black Northampton residents are poor relative to their white neighbors, and persistent gaps in educational attainment continue to exist between Black Northampton residents and their white neighbors. The ranks of municipal and public school leadership, elected and appointed, are and always have been overwhelmingly white and lacking in diversity. For many years, historians and researchers have been doing the hard work of uncovering Northampton's own history of slavery and the city's role in the nation's larger history as a country founded on the immoral and evil enslavement of people from Africa and indigenous people. But significant gaps in Northampton's history of slavery, instances of which occurred long after slavery was outlawed in Massachusetts, remain obscured in the history books and census data by incomplete information and the erasure of the names and histories of the people who lived their lives in Northampton as enslaved persons. In response to these continued inequities and a desire for change, the Northampton community raised up a call for the city to do more. Several members of the community band together to form the Northampton Reparations Committee. That committee rallied city leaders to undertake a city reparations effort, create a petition calling for the creation of a commission, and hosted a Zoom forum through Forbes Library. That forum focused on the importance and urgency of reparations efforts in Northampton. The Northampton City Council took up the call, and on February 16, 2023, unanimously passed Resolution 23.239, a resolution to create a commission to investigate racialized harms perpetuated against Black residents and workers in Northampton, sponsored by Councilors Jamila Gore, Garrick Perry, and Marissa Elkins, who are also on the Reparations Commission. The resolution acknowledges the City Council's, by its past legislation actions, entrenched segregation, discrimination, and systematic racist outcomes in areas such as zoning, housing, and licensing. And that's sort of a quote from it. Now, for how we come into this. On March 30th, 2023, the City Council accepted resolution sponsors' proposal charging the Commission to consider what initiatives should be funded and implemented by the city to support redress and fair treatment for Black people who live, work, and learn in this community, examine ways to restore, grow, and nourish Black community and culture in Northampton for future generations, and suggest ways the city might meaningfully atone to historic wrongs. Now, the Commission's work to date, we convened on August 24th, 2023, so about 14 months ago, and began its work by reviewing other municipalities' reparations efforts. As the work continued, the Commission met monthly to discuss its charge, debate ideas, and attempt to reach consensus as to what recommendations would be included. Commissioners' work, which has included study groups, has drawn on their expertise and lived experiences to research and compile information about issues covered by the charge and report their findings and ideas back to the group. This preliminary report is the product of the work to date. In developing these recommendations for guidance, we have looked to contemporary reparative efforts and as well as to the abolitionist movement. As distinguished former UMass professor, now at UConn, Manisha Sina wrote in The Slavery's Cause, the enduring heritage of the abolition movement is its unyielding commitment to human rights and a call to action. The abolitionists' wide-ranging activism, as W.B. Du Bois put it, the finest thing in American history. We have met, discussed, and debated in that spirit. The recommendations contained in this preliminary report are offered in the spirit of community, with the aspiration that they might ameliorate to some degree some of the malevolent harms caused by slavery and its multi-generational aftermath. We have tried to ensure accuracy in this report. Obviously, it's a preliminary draft, so we look forward to working on it more. If there are errors or omissions, we apologize, and we look forward to correcting them for our final report. With that introduction, I wanted to see if any other counselors had any other comments, or otherwise we'll take questions about the process or other parts of the report.
Counselors, Counselor Rothenberg.
Thank you so much. I was curious if any of your colleagues would like to speak tonight as well.
Yes.
Colleagues?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to give Renika a moment to settle in. First of all, let me say that I'd like to thank Mayor Gina and city councilors for putting together the budget and moving for us to do this work. my feelings about what we've done to date in no way undercuts that. It's really important, I think, for us to look to some of the recommendations that have been made in the report. Now, I've done a lot of work with research in my career. I've also done a lot of work around writing reports and having to work with people on writing reports. And as I said at our last meeting, you know, the real beauty of research, which is usually done in an academic setting, rarely actually touches communities. And when it does, you know, I feel it's like jazz. You know, I love learning and watching people learn together, and then watching people create solutions that you would never think of when you're in an isolated body trying to make choices and decisions. So when we look at this report, and I hope you all will take the time, and I know you all didn't have enough time in the time that has been given out, and it's and our agreement that it is preliminary. This report cites work to do in the future with communities, but the whole point of the report was to look at redress from the point of view of people, of Black people, African American people in particular. And we simply have not done that. And that is reality in the report. It was sort of an afterthought for us to throw in what is the community engagement study group doing. We've tried several times to move to be an actual subcommittee so that we can have discussions with the community like this, very much, with folks on channel. If they don't have the possibility, as you all know, there's a technology gap for white Americans and Black Americans. So just the ability for people to watch it on television versus having a computer, like many of you are sitting here and have the skills to do, would be helpful. So I just wanted to remind us of what are some of the things we were looking at to tackle. Segregation, low property values, environmental racism, the Ku Klux Klan and hate groups and the impact that they've had on Black and African American people, educational disparities. You all were just talking about last week when I was here, the last time you all met before Thanksgiving. That was a big issue in the school system. School to prison pipeline, sundowning towns and the effect that that had on African Americans, busing, little access to capital, higher property tax values, medical experimentation, bisected neighborhoods, very common in big cities, and then, of course, predatory learning rates. So all of those things are things that we agreed we were going to be looking at. And it's one thing to look at that in a bubble. It's another thing to bring community into that discussion and understanding so that we can do that in a synergistic way and create recommendations that get to the nitty and the gritty of how this impacts Black people's lives day to day. And we haven't even touched that. And that is my issue. I don't have a problem with, one of the big things in the report is, can we rename a major artery through Northampton? You didn't need to bring together this gentleman, myself, these counselors, the other people on the commission to do that. The people who put this all together could have recommended that as a part of their work. They spent 2 years researching and working on this. That's the group that actually helped to develop what went to, you're looking on certain, it's the group that helped develop what went to, my understanding, to Marissa as the charge of the work that they wanted the city to do. Now, they're not even acknowledged by name in the group. It is commented that they did this work. But if they wanted something that simplistic, they would have come up with that on their own. They're really smart people, well educated. You know how Northampton is. You walk down the street, you run right into a PhD. So they didn't need us to come up with renaming a street. We're talking about getting at the deeper issues, and that takes time. And it's not something you can do because somebody wants you to be on their timeline and, oh, we've got to hurry up and get this done. If you're really serious about the research work touching a community, especially in Northampton, it's going to take us time to develop that 100-person group. That's not going to happen like that. And without that, I don't see how we can move forward with good recommendations, because these are common folk recommendations. They're not really that clever, let me put it that way. And I think they're good-natured in a measure, and I think they're the best that a couple of middle-class black people and some middle-class educated white folks can put together. But it doesn't get to the nitty and the gritty of what people are experiencing daily. As I said to everybody at the last meeting, we haven't even talked to any working class people. We haven't talked to any of the poor. And I don't even know how we could even think of going forward without doing that. So we say we want to combat all these things. So I'm going to leave it there. And I know that Renika had some things she wanted to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Morris.
Hi, everyone. My name is Renika Montgomery Tomaclo, and I am one of the commissioners on the Operations Study Commission. I am not going to take up much time because I believe that Usman and Marcia have covered a lot of the things that we've talked about and a lot of the issues that we have faced going forward. One of them is the shortened timeline, as Marcia said. Like, realistically, we will need 2 years to get everything done. I know that we've gotten an extension until March, but we are looking to push that forward through to the summer. But also is the issue of, like, staffing of the commission. So our charge says that we have to have 9 to 11. We've had one seat that has stayed vacant, and that is the Human Rights Commission seat. And we've had a commissioner leave, so now we are down to 9. Fewer than 9, we cannot meet. So my one point that I really want to make here is that we move ahead, and I think that this body has the authority to move ahead and allow us to appoint 2 additional commissioners from, there's a list of Black Northamptonites who did not make it onto the original commission, and allow us to appoint those 2, and then slide the Human Rights Commission as an honorary position, so that if, like, there's ever enough staffing or if that commission gets up and running, they are allowed to, like, sit in our meetings, but we don't necessarily have to, like, have that spot available for them. And I think that that will definitely help us, because this phase of the work is actually the most pressing. As Marcia said, this is us going out into the community, speaking with community members, speaking to people who may not feel comfortable standing up here talking to you like Marcia, Usman, and I do, speaking to people who may not necessarily live in Northampton, but who work in Northampton, but who are still affected by, to this day, the way things have shaken out in Northampton, the way that the demographics of where are the Black people in Northampton, and where are the poor people in Northampton, and what do the school demographics look like, and how does that play out for the Black students in Northampton? Where do they go to high school? Where do they go to elementary school? What type of track are they on? What type of academics are they on? If they are in the high school, are they on the AP track? All of those things are things that we've heard people have concerns about, but that we haven't had a time to collate and disseminate, because we haven't had time or the personnel to get everyone involved and have those necessary discussions. So once again, thank you all so much for your time, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right. Any other commissioners? Perfect timing, Bill. Do you have anything to add?
Only if you want.
Okay. Well, at that point, then, without any other commissioners wanting to add anything, the floor is yours.
Are there any other counselors who haven't spoken who wish to speak? Better check Zoom. Councilor Moulton.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, all of you, the commissioners who have spoken, for your presentation tonight, and thanks to everyone on the commission for the very exhaustive work. I appreciate and respect the fact that that you have much more work that you want to accomplish. But what you have presented to us, I appreciate the holistic way that you have worked to document the history of slavery in Northampton, the history of racism in Northampton, and the efforts that have been made to this point to address and starting to redress that. Having all of that in one document, plus the appendices, which include a lot of primary source information, is very, very helpful. I guess the question I have is that both the report in noting that you want to increase your efforts at engagement and Commissioner Morris's comments about the 100-person goal, and so my question is, do you feel a need to have more resources in order to accomplish that over the next 9 months or so?
Yeah, I mean, the simple answer, of course, is yes. The wonderful presentation we had at a commission meeting 2 meetings ago, where the 100-person initiative was presented, is very exciting. You know, we're really looking forward to get starting on that, and so we're hoping to be able to flesh that out so we can really be more clear about budget and just what exactly it would take to make that happen. So stay tuned, stay excited about the possibility, because I think it's going to be something that's really enhance this and make this a lot stronger. So yes, and to be included in this, and also as we get things fleshed out. So still waiting on that.
Question to that.
Commissioner Morris.
We were told that we had to submit a budget to the mayor's office. Is that correct? Do we submit it? I thought we had to submit it to you, since right now our person runs out of your budget, but I was told that that's not the case. We submit a proposed budget to the mayor's office. What's the truth on that one?
So my understanding is that, there was the initial budget that was funded in the previous fiscal year, and at this point we're using the city council budget, and once the free cash undesignated fund is certified, they'll be introducing a financial order, the mayor's office will, that will replenish the city council budget from that, and essentially it's from the money that wasn't spent but was allocated in the previous fiscal year.
So it's promising.
Can I say that? So one thing that we will need to do, and as we develop the budget, Renika and I said that we would develop a budget, we will need a researcher, because we actually need some additional data. For those of you who read the report, I don't feel like it gives you the kind of look at what this gentleman said, which was the history of Northampton's in the areas of which are talked about in the introduction. Now, we have a list of recommendations backed up by an appendices that tells you can go off on your own and go read the work, but that's usually not how a research study of this type is done. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention in augmenting the report of the areas that will focus on black residents. We will bring those two pieces together. And for that's why.
Great. Other comments, questions?
Councilor Maori.
Yeah, I really a heartfelt thanks. When I remember when it was formed, just being proud and thrilled, but also knowing it was just there's no way it was going to be an easy journey. And it also sounds like it's kind of an onion where you start the more you dig, the more you find, and it's so I appreciate your tenacity. And continuing, you're doing a service for all of us in this community, so all of us can move forward with a better awareness and with a sense of some repairs being made. So really, I know I can only imagine it's been a lot, but I want you to know that we see that what you're doing, and we really appreciate it. I think I'm sure when you have your final report, we'll have time to kind of talk more details and more extensively, but I just wanted to take this juncture to tell you that now.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Councilor Perry, and are you also raising your hand, Councilor Labarge?
Yes, I'm trying to find the hand thing.
Okay, so I'm going to go to Councilor Perry, and then I'll go to you, Councilor Labarge.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to say, first of all, I am very thankful to be a part of this work. This is something that I've been passionate about, and it's been something I've been working on for other select committees. I was part of that select committee to study barriers to service, which really looked at why the people who serve on our boards and committees look a certain way. And I was one of the first people to be contacted by the Northampton Reparations Committee to put forward legislation, and then I worked with Jamila, and then we brought in Councilor Elkins, Marissa, as well. It's one of those cases where you're doing the work and giving yourselves more assignments, I feel like, and I've been really thankful to learn from all of these steps. It's been a pleasure, no matter what, to work with all of the other commissioners here who are doing this work here. Things that I just want to point out is that, while this is a preliminary report, as Councilor Moulton said, there is built into it more research. Literally the first page is talking about how the city should encourage, assist, chronicle, and publish information about ongoing reparation efforts and create the infrastructure to facilitate further reparative actions. So in here, we talk about getting more funding. We talk about doing the research and the things. So that is the first thing that we talk about in our recommendation. I think it's important to know that, no committee and no commission can do this in one try. Hence why I bring up that this has been a step-by-step process that I've been thankful to be a part of in my time here. One of the things I also like, and I hope that other counselors look at, is that some of the things that we talk about in this commission are about the actual research we've done and the actual implications. So we talk about our Registrar of Deeds and that research and how that has created more discussion, not outside of our own commission. Another thing that I think is very important is that we are looking in a holistic view as to how the city can start to redress some of these harms. Lost to time have been the people who were harmed. There is very much apparent that there was an abolitionist community here. Sojourner Truth lived here. There was I call it the black hippie community. And then all of a sudden they were not here. Part of what excites me and what I think excites Marcia and folks is that research. And in these recommendations is the basis of starting that research, and we try to lay out places where that should be. We suggest maybe the City Council takes it, or whether the Human Rights Commission. I said at our last meeting that I think that our Human Rights Commission, once it's back up and running, should be given the power to really sink into this. I think it's so important that our community does that. Things that I think that we've talked about that are missing from this report are some of the community engagements. We have done some work here. Usman Power Green spoke, so did Marsha Morris and myself at the Power of Truths conference that was at Bombix, right in Florence. At that, we had a panel that was on reparations. So we have done some of that work. Marsha Morris also has worked at doing some work with her church, College Church. There was an event on reparations. Former commission member and former chair Sarah Patterson also spoke at that as well, and that's not included in here, but I hope that it will be included. But that does not say that those community outreaches are the only things we want to do. I think it is important to reach out to the greater community. One thing that we talked about in some of our meetings was a survey to go out to community members. That kind of got lost in the wind, but I brought that up at the last meeting. I'm really hopeful that we'll bring that back. It is something that we also did in the select committee to study barriers to racialized harms. We put out some surveys, we tried to do some outreach, and it's hard. It's hard to get people to commit to filling out forms and things, but I think that it's important to do that work. And so I just wanted to point out some of what I think are highlights. And again, I'm very thankful for all of the work that all of these commissioners have done. So.
You have a direct response?
Yeah, I just had a process note, which is when I was on the Human Rights Commission, Jeremy Whalen, who's a teacher at the high school, was on, and we did a survey, and he has a great tool, and it was a little more broad. We were looking at race and class and just kind of about people's comfort level, but he might still have that tool. It was really well done, and we actually have those surveys too. But they may have yield something for you because we did take racial data, but I can't remember what else we asked. But anyway, it's Jeremy Whalen. All right, or you can just remind me and I'll ask him.
Great. Thanks. Councilor Labarge.
Thank you. I want to thank the Northampton Reparations Study Committee. This has not been easy at all. And I want to thank you all for working tirelessly. I think that this Reparations Study Commission is very valuable in the city, very valuable. And I'm hearing again tonight that more research needs to be done. I'm glad to hear from our council president about how we're going to fund it. I think that's extremely valuable that we do get funded for the continuing of the Northampton Reparations Study Commission, and hearing the many things that you need to research. You research to the best that you can now, and you need to go further. And I agree of what I just heard from Councilor Perry of getting the community involved. That is extremely valuable here. And also, I feel that the Human Rights Commission, which I'm a huge supporter of human rights, and I think they definitely should be connected with the Northampton Reparations Study Commission to move forward also. So thank you very much for all your hard work and the two counselors that were involved in it also.
Thank you. Any counselors who haven't spoken? Okay, Councilor Rothenberg.
Thanks. I hear your silence, Mr. Newman, and I appreciate it, to the comments that I made at the meeting that you had, where I really wanted to be centering Renika and Marcia's voices, and I appreciate the comments that you had to make tonight. What I hear you saying is that you want to make sure that you add 2 more members to this commission, and you want to make sure that they're black. And you think that the Human Rights Commission is a fine commission to have looped in, but the priority, and what's less arbitrary to you, is to have it be 2 black people. And I don't know what the process is for getting those members here, so I will ask a question about that.
Yeah, let me just respond.
And I'll also, excuse me,
hold on.
if I could just finish. I would also say that I think if there's some pushback to that, I presume that you would want former Councilor Gore to be your representative from the Human Rights Commission, being that she is a black person. And I'll pause there. Love to hear from all of you.
Respond to that, and then March, I'll let you go. So at our last commission meeting, which was Tuesday, we had a nice long discussion about this, and we all agreed that we're going to move forward with the process of adding commissioners. So that's already going to happen, and we're just working through the process to make that happen.
I appreciate what you're saying. My understanding, and I got asked, Anthony, who's our admin assistant, to secure the list of African American people that applied, and I believe that's between 30 and 34 people that applied, that are people that wanted to be active, were interested, they wanted to get involved. So, and they were interviewed, so it's really not a heavy lift to add to African American people that are interested and have the time. This is the big thing. They must have the time to do this. Because unfortunately right now we're running without a researcher. So we need folks that really, this is their this is their passion, you know what I mean? And people that have the time, I think what we wrestle with sometimes on the people on our commission is there are people on our commission that are overloaded and they just don't have time for this, so they want us to speed it up so we can just be done. And it's not about that. It's if, and someone said in our last meeting in a comment, you know, I understand that, you know, black people are always concerned that, you know, in different initiatives, we don't get to be center and core to the initiative. That is the initiative for us, right? So you would think it would be center and core, it would be us. So I don't understand how we could even think to wrap up a commission and we haven't talked to black people. Not middle class, well-educated black people, but regular black folk, and find out what they're thinking and feeling and what's important to them. I don't understand how we can say we can, you know, put that as a note for, you know, as a recommendation. That shouldn't be a recommendation. These recommendations affect their lives, not just our lives. So with that, I'll get off my soapbox. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to point out that every commissioner on the commission agree 100% that we need greater community engagement. So we're all on the same page, actually.
Great, thanks. Go ahead.
So I think there's a lot more to say, but I think like Councilor Maori said, you know, this conversation will be continuing. Right now we're at a point where it sounds like you're extended to March. It would be nice to extend it into the summer, or necessary at the very least. So we'll have more opportunity to discuss. I think for me, the two priorities tonight were to make a very clear record of the expectation about that money. I'm so glad to hear it. And the clear stated desire from at least Marcia and Renika about who should be those next two commissioners that we add. So I think that record is clear, and now we wait to see what happens. What is the process that would then happen next? Would the mayor be appointing those people? Would they be choosing people themselves? What's the process?
So the commission has a certain charge, and in it details, for example, that one of the members will be from the Human Rights Commission, and that came from the council together with the mayor, but the council president, you know, wasn't me before, but now is me and the mayor, jointly together choose who to fill, and we look forward to working with the commission and hearing the recommendations from the commission regarding that.
So I'm sorry, just to clarify, you will be looking for some kind of a majority feeling that will be guiding you? Or are you leaning in this direction of wanting to have two black people after what we've heard tonight?
I haven't had a conversation at all about it, so I look forward to having that conversation.
And you don't have a sense of the process that you'll follow in making your decision?
Not yet.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That concludes all of my questions.
Sure. Should the mayor go first and then you go to that? Just to stay on the same topic. We're just going to go to another thing.
Okay, sure. So I'm happy, I was just going to say I'm happy to work with the council president and make two additional appointments. I had spoken to Jamila Gorin and had asked her when I was appointing her to the Human Rights Commission to be part of the commission. So I'm happy to talk to her again, and I've been encouraging that there's a quorum for the Human Rights Commission, so I think that they have been working to organize a meeting. I'll encourage them to keep doing that. I've asked a couple times for them to get together and meet. So I'm happy to work with the council president on looking at the list and seeing who was not appointed from that original group, and work on appointing a couple more folks. And also, I just want to add my thanks. I think that this is, clearly there's more work that needs to be done and an interest in doing more work, but I just want to say that I think this is a really well done preliminary report. It's very robust. There's a lot to it, and I also just want to ask, I assume, even though it's preliminary, I assume the recommendations that are in here now are going to stick and they wouldn't be changed, or I only ask because I've already asked my office to start looking at it and seeing what we could start working on now, even though it's preliminary. So I just want to make sure that this, you feel like,
I mean, you know, based on the sentiment of commissioners, most of the area that we're moving forward with have more to do with community engagement. So the recommendations that are in here and the list of items in here are not stuff that we, at least for now, plan on spending more time on.
Okay.
And so that sort of answers your question, but.
No, that's helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sorry?
May I be more direct?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would say that those recommendations are from the commission, but I would say that we don't know if those are the recommendations that will impact Black people's lives, because we really haven't talked to the community. And we don't even know what, working in synergy with research and education and the community, what recommendations might come forward. Those recommendations, and I'm glad everybody's read the report, none of them are, you have to ask yourself, are they symbolic, or are they really going to repair harm? I'm all for renaming a street. I don't care personally. You know what I mean? We've got all kind of slave owners' street names here now. But so if you want to put one person of, Black person, and they're in history, Sojourner Truth, I'm all for it. Why not? But I wouldn't say that's going to repair anything. It's not going to change dramatically any Black person's life, and that's what redress is about. And so it's redress. It's not, shall we do symbolic things to make us all feel good? And so, the harder work takes time, because it means you have to be interested in what people think. And it's up to you guys whether or not you're interested in what Black people think.
Thank you.
And to that, Bill Newman, about the appendix and the research?
Yeah, I thank you all.
Welcome, Commissioner Newman.
Just take a minute of your time at most. I just wanted to add, the question of the appendix came up, and I thought I'd take 1 minute to explain why it's there and what it's in there. And what's in there are the documents that were too long initially to put in the report itself. So there are 8 reports from 8 organizations in Northampton that talk about what the reparative work is that they're doing, and that seemed to me to be appropriate for Appendix 1 to 7 or 1 to 8. Then I thought it was important, and I think the Commission thought it was important, to have examples of these deeds that we talk about in detail. So there are a number of examples of the deeds. And then there are a number of examples from Smith College of the reports, not examples, there are the reports from Smith College. And these documents are all documents that would not be easily accessible to people in the community if they wanted to access them, and or they would have to look through multiple websites. And so we created this appendix so it would, all the information that is not easily available is there at a person's fingertips. So, for example, we left out a copy of H.R. 40, which is important, but it's 30 pages and not necessary, and on one Google search you'll find it. But the documents not so easily accessible, or that we could synthesize and make available to all the people of the city, we thought that was important, and that's the purpose of the appendix.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. All right. Other comments or questions?
I will add also my appreciation to everyone on the commission, and I appreciate the breadth of recommendations and the many footnotes and the appendices. I'm really looking forward to your guidance on what you describe as the missing piece, the possible government-sponsored economic or other direct benefits, and where you might land with that, and given the laws that we will have to navigate. And I also, having served on a commission, the Northampton Policing Review Commission, one of the things that there were a diversity of opinions in that commission. And we gave the opportunity for a minority opinion or for individuals who disagreed with the majority opinion to have space in that report to share their thinking. So, that's another possibility.
Something we've definitely considered, so.
Okay, any other questions from counselors? All right, thank you very much, and very excited for when you come back.
Council President, can we have a 5-minute recess, please?
Yes, we will do 8 minutes because we always need more time. So 7:38.
For the ladies. This one.
Okay, welcome back to Northampton City Council. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we have the minutes of November 21st, regular City Council meeting, and November 26th, special City Council meeting. We also have 24.163A, appointments to various committees, positive recommendations from city services. And there's a note, the appointments of Amelia Shaw to the Arts Council and Kathleen Chapman to the Human Rights Commission, which were part of that order, I think, will be taken up at a special City Services Committee meeting December 16th at 4:30 p.m. And the ones that are on the consent agenda to the Agricultural Commission, Stan Zawalik and Richard Jaski, and these are both reappointments. And that's it. So are there any removals from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Approve. Oh, there's so many.
No.
I think we'll say Councilor Rothenberg, and seconded by Councilor Labarge. A roll call, please, for the consent agenda.
Councilor Dobbs.
Yes.
Councilor Elkins.
Yes.
Councilor Jarrett.
Yes.
Councilor Clemmer.
Yes.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes.
Councilor Maori.
Yes.
Councilor Moulton.
Yes.
Councilor Perry.
Yes.
And Councilor Rothenberg.
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Next is the review of request for proposals, RFP, for 33 King Street. So this has come before us before. We have, in the process note, we have that per 21.323, in order to acquire, surplus, and dispose of a certain property located at 33 King Street, which was adopted in 2021, we authorized the mayor to surplus and transfer property located at 33 King Street, subject to the condition that the City Council approve the RFP prior to its issuance. And we did review and positively recommend the original RFP in September 2023. And now we have a new RFP before us, and we have Planning Director Mish here to speak to this. And welcome, Director Mish.
Good evening. Thank you. So the reason why we're bringing this back, excuse me, is that we have issued an RFP 2 times. The first time had the original items that council reviewed and sort of wordsmithed, and we added a lot of review criteria. And so we issued the initial request for proposals in early, like late winter, early spring, I guess winter. And we did not receive any bids the first time. We got some feedback from prospective bidders about the uncertainties and confusion about what was really the city's desire. They were trying to read between the lines in the scoring criteria. And that was reflected by at least one of the prospective bidders. And so we tweaked the language a little bit for the second iteration. We dropped the minimum bid because we were hearing too that there was, concern about the pricing and the market conditions. And so the second bid went out in July. That's the one that was included in your packet. And even with those adjustments, we still had no bidders. And we got a little bit more detailed response from folks, a few more folks. And really, it was a reflection, the same responses back, that it still there wasn't enough security and understanding whether or not a project or a proposal would get approved, and the risks were just too high. So we started reflecting on that, and I'll back up and say that the first time we submitted the proposal, it went out to folks across the Commonwealth. So we had a list we got from Division of Capital Asset Management, gave us their list of people that they send their RFPs to. So we used that same list and culled it a little bit because some of them weren't quite appropriate. But in the end, we had just about 200 people to whom we sent the original RFP. So that's on top of the required advertising locations that this needs to be, where this needs to be posted. So after we didn't receive any bids the second time around, Division of Capital Asset Management came to me directly with their concerns, but also expressing that, in fact, they're having difficulties across the Commonwealth with bidders responding to their other properties. And they relayed that, it's a very quirky market in terms of the high costs of construction and the ability for developers across the Commonwealth, in Eastern Mass as well, to put together packages that make financial sense and that can work. And it's for mixed income as well as market rate housing as well as other commercial properties. It's just the costs, the labor costs for construction, the materials costs for construction are just so high that the numbers aren't matching up. So DCAM said that they really wanted to provide us with technical assistance and try to guide us and create another round for RFP that was much simpler and stripped down to just sort of take away, and this is what we heard, frankly, from some prospective bidders, is just make it simple. If you really want to sell the property and you want to get return long-term for the city for, long-term revenue generation, just put it out there and say, look, we have this piece of property. It's for sale. Tell us what your best, what's your best offer? What are you going to build? What will the projected revenues be, and so forth? And so that's what DCAM has been telling us, is that, the couple things that we have in there, they didn't think there was a problem with. So, for example, the maintaining the easement, to the bike path is not an issue. And the fossil fuel-free criteria was not an issue for them, although they did say, why don't you soften that language a little bit and say, we encourage you to do fossil fuel-free. And I had to emphasize to them that, in fact, we have a gas moratorium, and, oh, by the way, we also have just become a pilot for the Commonwealth. And so then they backed off of that. So they're basically fine with those two things. But generally recommended that we just simplify, and really with a goal of trying to get, a solid bidder or set of bidders from which we can choose to achieve the best outcome. And I will say, even though the scoring criteria sort of set up what looked like would have been, priorities for the city, particularly related to mixed income projects, if it were a housing project. Now this is open to anybody. It doesn't necessarily have to be housing. It could be, any kind of commercial, hotel, mixed hotel and some other use. But on the residential side, I know the counselors have talked about having affordable housing or some kind of mixed income. And really the way the market is now, with the cost so high, there are the incentives to create affordable housing or building workforce housing may be enough to help offset and close those gaps. So we might end up getting a project anyway. If someone's going to do housing, someone might propose something that would be mixed income, but we don't necessarily need to put it out there and say that. But it's just sort of the quirkiness of the market now is pointing people to look at those opportunities to avail themselves of financial incentives from the state for affordable housing or workforce housing. And then finally, it would be great to have council sign off on this latest version tonight and certainly in December, because the benefit of doing it in December is that if we get an RFP ready to go at the beginning of January, DCAM will post this on their distribution that they are planning in January, where they have a number of properties that they're trying to really advertise and highlight. And so if we can get on that list, we'll be better off because we'll have potentially more eyes looking at the RFP. So that's why I wanted to make sure to bring this to you in December.
Thank you. This is, some of us, this is the third time we're considering this, but others, it's the first time. So could you explain a little of the requirements that the state has put forward? This is a state-owned building that they are offering for us to sell, and we receive approximately half, and they receive approximately half. But then there's also a restriction were we to want to use it for our own use?
Correct. So as you mentioned, the stipulation is that we split the proceeds with the Commonwealth for any revenue that, on the front end that we sell the property. But if we use it for municipal purposes, then we owe full market value back to the Commonwealth for that property. So that's a big difference.
Yeah, I think that's important for everyone to know, because I've certainly heard a lot of, things from members of the public that would say, why don't you use it for municipal use? And there would be a very big financial difference.
Yes, right. And then, of course, you don't get the tax revenue long-term coming into the city. It won't be on the tax rolls. Right.
Hang on.
The other piece of it is that there would be this cost for demolition of the building, because the building, was actually originally built to be a parking garage, and so that's the hulk of the structure there. And in fact, it's my understanding that the reason why the Commonwealth vacated the building is because there were issues with mold, and it wasn't very conducive as an office space. So I think, it's a tired structure. So that's an added expense that anyone who takes this on, whether it's if the city were to take it, there would be the demolition plus the full market value that we pay to the Commonwealth. But what's that?
And then creating anything.
And then creating any replacement building would be another expense on top of that. Sort of a threefer in that sense. And then just a follow-up comment about the another example of sort of the housing market difficulties that we're in, and it's not just unique to Northampton, but across the country, but in particular in the Commonwealth. There's been a project at 79 King Street that's been fully permitted, and the developer is still trying to make the numbers work for the number of units that have been approved, and that was at market rate. And so they're considering alternatives to market rate housing because the construction costs just aren't matching up what the return rents would be once the building's finished. And so that's just another example of housing already sort of backlogged in Northampton because of this problem. So they might be seeking out other potential ways to patchwork the financial package together to make it work.
Thanks. Councilor Rothenberg, you got a question?
Yes, thank you. Can you just speak more to the state's reasoning, if you know it, for that sort of almost financial punishment to the city were they to keep it themselves? Where does that come from?
That's typical for all their buildings across the Commonwealth, and it's just that their interest is getting revenues back in the community and also in the Commonwealth. And so that's been their policy for a number of years now.
So you think it's because they want us to be bringing in property taxes because that's beneficial to them, or they're trying to encourage us to make a good choice for ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, I think they need revenue, right? So they want a sale. So they want to sell the property. And so and the whole reason why the Commonwealth has started moving in this path towards selling properties to municipalities is because they think the municipalities are more nimble and can resell them more quickly than the Commonwealth. And so in doing that, that's the arrangement that they have established, is to say, okay, look, we know it takes us forever to get out of our own way. I'm making these words up, and I hope nobody from DCAM is listening. But even though I'm making a permanent record here on the Zoom world. But, you know, we're the big Commonwealth. It's hard. It takes us a long time to do this stuff. If we just let the cities do it, they know their markets. They can get it done more quickly.
And I understand that. No, I'm sorry, but this is off topic of the question. It's not addressing my actual question. If I could clarify, if you wouldn't mind.
Councilor Rothenberg, please let Director Misch finish.
So all I'm saying is I think that their goal is to sell the property, and they've only given it, like, we're the intermediary to do that for them.
Right.
So the ultimate goal is to get revenue back to the Commonwealth, but also get the property into tax generating income for local and state revenues.
So you think, if I'm understanding you correctly, that the reason that they would only take half if someone else bought it, but would not let you buy them out of half, is because they think that it's such a good idea for us to generate property tax from it. They're really trying to incentivize that.
I'm sorry, can you just repeat it? I'm
trying to understand why they don't treat a buyout the same as they do to someone else buying it. So you're splitting the proceeds if it's just someone else buying it. But if it's you buying it, you have to pay them twice as much. Why is that? Why do they make twice as much if it goes to us instead of to someone else? Councilor Elkins?
Councilor Elkins?
I mean, it's the state, the sale is for the total amount of money regardless. If the state sells it on its own, the state gets all of it. Whereas if they partner with the city, then the city gets half of it. Otherwise, the state doesn't have to give the city any of it.
Right.
And if we decide we want it for municipal use, then we're buying the whole thing.
Exactly.
I think is the difference. It's not, I don't think it's punishment. The other thing is that the state is not in the business of buying and developing property for governmental business and then giving it to cities for whatever they want it to do. I mean, that'd be lovely if they would, but they're just not going to give us the property. So,
okay, well, I'll just then end that inquiry by saying it just makes no sense to word 3, and I would be curious why the state does that we could sell it and give them half of the profit, or we could buy it and give them 100. I don't understand why it doubles if it's us, but maybe it's just not being communicated clearly.
No, I think what Councilor Elkins was saying, so if the property is worth $1 million, the Commonwealth will sell it for $1 million to a private entity.
You're selling it, and you get 50 and they get 50.
Right.
Sorry, you're selling it, then you get 50, they get 50. You're buying it, they get $1 million.
Right.
They don't get 50. You don't get a 50% discount if you're buying it. That's what I don't understand.
And
because it's the fair market value. They need to make sure that they get fair market value no matter what. But we're doing the work, so that's just the deal.
And a buyout would be you doing the work too. You're selling it to yourself, right? You're setting up that sale. You're finding a buyer, which is you. I mean, we don't need to discuss it further. It doesn't make sense to me, and I'm not hearing any answers that do make sense. And I don't want to take up all the time, but.
Yeah, I think the division, is it the Division of Capital Asset Management? Or it would be, or our state representatives might be able to shed some more light on the mysteries of the state.
And I'll just say, sort of it's DCAM policy, but it's also written into the legislation that disposed of the property. So it's all. It's legislative action.
And I believe you. I just want to say that too. I believe you that that's why. I'm just wondering that is what happens. I'm just wondering why that is what happens. So thank you.
Other counselors have questions. Councilor Perry.
Yeah.
Oh, and then we'll go to Councilor Labarge.
Look, me and you, Mary Ann, just keep going back and forth. Sorry. Because this has come before us a couple times, and I'm just trying to remember, is there an incentive, a time incentive to selling it as well? Can we just talk about that?
Yes. So there are built-in, so there's a 50-50 split of the proceeds, but there are certain other incentives that increase the percentages, so above 50%. And, excuse me, one of them is if we sell it within, I think we have till June of 23 to make, there's like a 2-year and then a 5-year window. So if we sell it within 2 years, we get 55%. I'll have to look at the specifics in the legislation, but it's something like that. And then if it takes 5 years, then that percentage comes back down, so we get 52.5 instead of 55%. So there are built-in incentives to get us, off the dime, and then we get more than 50%.
Thank you.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes, thank you. Carolyn, I'm a little confused right now. But anyways, I know you can answer this. What I'm hearing is that the state is the state, and they are working with the city in order to go ahead and proceed with selling that property, correct? My big question is, how do we know how much to sell it for? Who is going to make that price? Is it going to be the state to sell it, or this is what I want the city to sell it for?
No, I mean, the market will tell us what the value is. And initially, we set a minimum bid and didn't receive any responses. $2 million, 2.1, right. The first one was 2.6, and then we dropped it to 2.1. And
Would you, Carolyn, about the price of everything today, for contractors, supplies, right down the line, and they're out there looking, and whatever good deal they get, they're going to take it, no matter what. And I think by doing what we're doing tonight, of looking at this and changing the language on it, apparently is very critical here. Very critical in order for us and the state to sell that building. We just can't let it keep sitting there and sitting there. So that was my question though. How do we put a price on it when we're working for the state? Who has the most authority? The state? When you go to them and say, yeah, we got a bidder here for 1 million, and they say no, it's worth more than that. What happens then?
so the structure of the RFP is such that the city is in the driver's seat to determine the most beneficial response of 4 bidders. And so the state is not going to turn around and, be looking over our shoulder and say, oh, no, we don't like that one, you pick the other one. It's completely, we're in the driver's seat on that. But the language will be such that the bids will be reviewed, and it'll be clear to bidders what the city's going to be looking for selection. So if we get 2 bids and one is from a candidate that says they will pay $2 million, but they don't really have a track record of development or developing in a timely fashion, and another bidder is at $1.5 million, but they've done lots of projects, they have lots of experience, it might be more beneficial for the city to take the lower bidder because it's more of a certainty that project will get off the ground and start generating revenue for the city.
That makes sense. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Go to Councilor Clemmer, then Councilor Elkins, then Councilor Moulton.
Yeah, it's a great location, and the right person's out there, just finding them. So the cost for advertising and getting it sold, how does that work? Who pays for that?
So that's another part of the agreement with the Commonwealth. So whatever expenses the city undertakes to maintain the property, so over the last year and a half that we've had it now, all the expenses we're tracking, and that comes off the top of the ultimate sale. So if we sell it for $1 million, but we had $200,000 in expenses, then it's $800,000 is the sale, and then we divide that. So included in that would be any expenses for advertising.
So basically, the Commonwealth and the city would split it. Okay, that's good.
Councilor Elkins.
So I have a question and then just a couple of comments. So the question is there any thought that with a simplified RFP that we might be able to kind of bump the asking price back up? I mean, we were getting no bids because of risk and it was complicated, but is there? I mean, I guess what I'm wondering if the risk and complications kind of interfered with the market value, like maybe we might be able to bump it back up, or are we like, well, we couldn't sell it at 2.6. We're assuming it's going to go back out at 2 or where we were, or is the thought to drop more and simplify things?
So what we've heard from both prospective bidders and DCAM is that having a minimum bid makes it more untenable and more complicated. And DCAM doesn't do any minimum bids anywhere across the common. They want to make sure that all their that they're evaluating the total package of a project for the long-term best financial benefit. And so it might not be an upfront bump, but the goal really is to get a property back into productive use and generating tax revenue. So they are very strongly discouraging us from having any kind of minimum bid.
Oh, okay. So well, that's interesting to know. I mean, I think most of us come from the, you list your house or whatever that's kind of how that goes. I just wanted to I think this is something that we should approve. I know we all had aspirations, hopes. It was interesting to be included in the thinking around this project and what we wanted this to be. And I know I'm guessing if it turns out to not involve housing, that will be a very disappointing circumstance. That being said, I do think we get, like you said, the market and the way that housing and affordable housing subsidizes development generally and mixed income housing generally. I'm hopeful that you're correct about that bump will be realized. I also think our form-based code in the Gateway District zoning incentivizes housing and mixed use in this particular area, and I'm hoping that will also be attractive to a developer. And as it is right now, it's a black hole for the state. It's a sink. It's a place where we're not realizing revenue, and we have to maintain it to a certain degree. Like we have to maintain that parking lot in the back. We've added the parking fees in the back, and there are liabilities associated with vacant buildings, hanging around downtown where there's lots of need, and there's just such a need. So. As hopeful as we all were, and as much time as we spent on those conversations, which were great to be involved with, I'm supportive of this. I think we should think they probably know what they're talking about there at DCAM, and I'm glad that there is this arrangement to. I don't find it confusing at all. I don't think people are, the state's in the business of giving away property, and that we're. Otherwise wouldn't be in a position to realize any profit or income from this property, but for this arrangement. So I think it makes a lot of sense.
Councilor Moulton.
Thank you. I wanted to follow up on several points that have been made and then ask a question about what I see as the one remaining guardrail for the city. It is disappointing to me that all that time we spent a year ago crafting these very what we thought were very encouraging and aspirational criteria around housing, particularly affordable and workforce housing, as well as some parking, did not elicit any responses. But not surprising, I guess, in the current construction environment. I do agree both with Councilor Labarge and Councilor Elkins that we need to move on this. That property is a very it's a very valuable piece of property, and it's in a very prominent location downtown, and I hate to see it vacant for any longer than necessary. So I too am supportive of moving ahead with this streamlined RFP. The question I have, I see the one remaining guardrail as the paragraph that reads, "The City of Northampton is not obligated to select the proposal that offers the highest purchase price. The successful proposal will be the one that is most advantageous to the City of Northampton and best meets the selection criteria." So I'd like both Director Mish and the Mayor to address what they would be thinking about in determining what would be the most advantageous proposal, presuming we get more than a single bid.
I mean, you want me to start? I think first I would say that DCAM has suggested this language because it allows flexibility to think about different scenarios that bidders might. So if we have more than one bidder, then we can look at, you know, is it a proposed hotel, or is it residential, and what kind of residential, and looking at not just maybe the tax revenue that might be generated from those two uses, but what impact on the street life downtown might that be, or what sort of multiplier effects those uses, one use over another, might have, and not knowing exactly what that might be. This just leaves a little, this provides flexibility. And I think what's interesting about getting sort of this assistance from DCAM is that it's clear that this formula has worked for them before, that they've done they take this language and they really are able to assess different proposals without being wedged into a scenario where they have to select one over the other, and they're not also running afoul of the Chapter 30B requirements of procurement. And so one of the reasons why we had very specific scoring criteria was because we wanted to make sure we were going to comply with 30B. And so hearing the way the state does this in a more fluid or flexible way, I think is comforting in that regard.
I mean, I'll just add, you know, whatever is going to kind of bring the most life and energy to that section. You know, there are restaurants there. There's the hotel. It's near music venues. We'd love there's a music venue right next to it that we would love to have back open. So whatever is going to inject as much energy into that spot. Also, you know, Carolyn talked about the other housing development that we hope is going to happen just a little bit farther down the block. So we think that there is a lot of potential for a lot of people to live in that area and also just come and enjoy that area. So some sort of mixed use that maybe provides some housing, but also brings more vibrancy to that spot is what I would love to see.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions, comments from councilors? Councilor Mary.
Yeah, I just want to say that, you know, I'm satisfied that it did go to our subcommittees, and we did have those conversations, and I don't feel like that we need to go back to doing that again. And yeah, I was going to agree with the mayor that really anything where we are at now is not looking at that building, you know. So hearing you talk about it, I was like, yes, that would be so exciting. So I hope we do move on it, but I don't feel it needs to be referred back.
I'll just weigh in. I was also, really excited about the previous ones. I was wary at the time of the minimum bid being as high as it was. I hope that we get a lot of great bids, and that, I'm glad that we get to weigh more than just price, and I appreciate what you two just spoke to. So there's a rule, 2.6.1.1.4, that provides that the Finance Committee shall review all proposals to sell or lease any city-owned land or building not put to public use that are submitted to the City Council for approval, and all proposals to purchase or lease real property that are submitted to the City Council for approval. However, we already did that. This is somewhat new, so I think that the rule would apply and that we would need to waive that rule by suspending the rule, in order to move forward and vote tonight if that is what we so choose. And additionally, the item has already been introduced and discussed at previous City Council meetings. Only a single vote is required. However, we always have the option to refer or delay as well if we're not ready. So is there interest in suspending that rule? I would entertain a motion.
Yes.
So,
having heard the Finance Committee Chair, and I concur with her, I move that we suspend the rule to refer to Finance again.
I'll second that.
motion made by Councilor Moulton and seconded by Councilor Labarge. Discussion on suspension of that rule. Councilor Rothenberg.
I just have one more question, and I was wondering if there will be a chance to ask question after suspension.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Roll call, please, on suspension of the rule that requires us to refer this to Finance.
Councillor Elkins.
Yes.
Councillor Jarrett.
Yes.
Councillor Clemmer.
Yes.
Councillor Labarge.
Yes.
Councillor Maori.
Yes.
Councillor Moulton.
Yes.
Councillor Perry.
Yes.
Councillor Rothenberg.
No.
And Councillor Dobbs.
Yes.
Okay, that passes with 8 yes votes and 1 no. So that rule has been suspended, and we could entertain a motion to approve and then discuss.
Move to approve.
Second it.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Elkins and seconded by Councilor Clemmer. So it's on the floor for approval. Discussion.
Question.
Councilor Rothenberg.
What is the current free market value?
Would that be to
And
Director Mish?
Anybody who knows, and the current assessed value.
So we have not done an appraisal, and that would have to occur, at such point that it makes sense. So if we have an approved parcel, then we'd have to do an appraisal. But, it's the fair market value is whatever a prospective buyer is willing to pay.
So the mass using the Massachusetts Interactive Database, which is a state tool, it's saying the total value of the building is $3.9235. Assessment data from 2023.
Million?
Yes.
Yeah.
3.9.
That includes the building. Correct.
That's building and land. And most of the value is in the building, they claim. So I would argue they haven't been inside that building.
Other questions, comments? Councilor Rothenberg.
Yeah, I think I'll just make my comments before the vote, sort of where my thinking is on this. I don't think that fair market value is whatever a bidder is willing to pay or a buyer is willing to pay. I think, I've heard lots of experts have lots of testimony in court about how you show what a fair market value is. And that might be one loose way to kind of summarize that whole process. But it's not that simple, the sort of the highest bidder or the highest buyer, And I think that we just, by not referring it to finance, I think we're skipping some of our due diligence. I don't hear a lot of vision for the space. Energy sounds nice, but I think that I would just put this under the category of just kind of going through motions in a way that I'm not comfortable with, and I don't think I can report back to the residents of Ward 3 that I sort of responsibly carried out my duties by voting in that manner. And I think that this property, particularly in the same time period as everything going on with the church purchase, is just something that's being too scrutinized by my constituents for me to just pass through this quickly in a waived second reading and all of that. So I will be abstaining tonight. I think we haven't done quite enough work as a council to help support our mayor with this project. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would encourage you in the future to make the argument around, whether to not refer it before we vote, so that we can listen to before we voted about waiving that rule, so we could consider your position.
That is a great suggestion. Thank you.
You're welcome. Director Mish.
So I just wanted to describe a little bit in terms of the vision for the property, and that an RFP doesn't really encapsulate the vision of the community when we sell properties. It's really about all the groundwork that's been done in the city, and in particular in downtown and the zoning district. So there's been a lot of scaffolding and structure and framework developed about what the city wants for downtown Northampton, and that is then has been developed into this form-based code that we have. And so that creates that will ultimately, what gets built will have to comply with a form-based code, which was established in order to fulfill the vision of having a building that has lots of energy and presence along the street, is multi-story. In fact, the zoning there were some review criteria that was to encourage stories over building of 3 stories or more, but in fact, the minimum height is already, I think, 30 feet in that zone, and the cost of construction is so high that you wouldn't just come in with a 3-story building anyway. So. And then all the design principles and the uses allowed in the whole range of uses that are allowed in the zoning are reflective of what the community has said would be appropriate in such a location. So all of that work has been done for years leading up to the adoption of the form-based code, as opposed to putting that into, a single RFP for one property.
Councilor Moulton.
Yeah, and I would add to Director Mish's comments that the previous council did substantial due diligence on this project. And all you have to do is you have to look at RFPs number 1 and 2, and you see all of the scoring criteria that were developed in an attempt to encourage a project that showed some vision for that piece of property. And we developed that after, as I recall, quite a lengthy joint meeting of Finance and Community Resources last year, in which we heard many comments from the public about that property as well. So, I would not have voted to suspend the rules if I felt we were abrogating our responsibility.
So it's on the floor. Any other comments?
I have another one.
Councilor Rothenberg.
So I appreciate that. I also expect more change. I expect mayors to come in here with their new visions, and I expect councils to come in and do their work anew, and when things come before us, for us to do them. And I also am mindful of the fact that that has not been the case in Northampton for quite some time. And when I hear that bidders were reluctant about whether their project would get approved. I hear the residue of working with Director Fiden, and I think we have a lot of change still to do. It's very important to Ward 3, and that's the last I'll say about it tonight.
Councilor Elkins.
I mean, this last round was this mayor, most of this council. We've spent hours on this. We spent a great deal of time, and that doesn't count what the work that's been done in the mayor's office and in Director Mish's office. At the end of the day, this isn't about what we would do if we own the property. We're not in the business of building market rate housing or mixed income retail, all of this sort of thing. We're hoping that many of the years of work in terms of zoning reform and zoning ordinances and development of the Gateway District and form-based code. So it's a little difficult to hear that all of that work and that time by so many people giving so much of their time reduced to minimized in this way. I think this is an excellent proposal. I think we're wise to take the advice of DCAM, and I'm ready to vote to approve this.
Thank you. Okay. Councilor Labarge, and then Councilor Perry.
Thank you. I have to agree what I'm hearing from some of my colleagues. I think our planning department, the community has voiced themselves. A lot of meetings were being held here. We need to move on. We need to move on to get rid of that building. It's just sitting there, deteriorating. That's what's going to happen here. And I'm going to support this move. It needs to be done.
Councilor Perry.
Yeah, I just want to also reiterate what some people are saying, that there have been a lot of hours. I was part of those joint meetings. I was the chair at that time of Community Resources. One thing that, we did have aspirational gains, but as someone who has spent the majority of my life both working in Ward 3 and Ward 4 in the downtown and knowing what it's like to how important that space is, I think being flexible and understanding that we want to make this as appealing to folks. I think it's important to kind of simplify, to invite new people to our city, and I'm very proud to support this change here. So I want to thank everyone for the work that they are doing on this, both before we brought this and the other drafts that we had, and right now. I think reading through it felt to me that if I was someone who was coming to this city, it would make me a little bit more ready to be a partner here. So,
Mayor Sheriff.
Yeah, I'll just say that I feel like Director Mish very clearly articulated what she heard from potential bidders, and additionally what she heard from DCAM as to why people were reticent about submitting bids because there was a lack of clarity. And I think we all own that because we created that RFP together. And it not only is it unwarranted, but it's really unfair to slam the former director in that way, who was not actually part of this process and had nothing to do with what Director Mish heard from bidders or DCAM.
Okay. Let's have a roll call vote.
Sorry, one more comment.
Yes, Councilor Roth.
Ward 3's opinion of the former director stands.
I'm sorry.
Councilor Elkins.
100% no, that is not the consensus view of all of Ward 3. I know that for a fact. I also represent Ward 3 as at large. I also, so maybe if we could keep the denigration of former city employees to a minimum and stop speaking for everybody as if you don't.
I also represent Ward 3.
Roll call, please.
Councilor Jarrett.
Yes.
Councilor Clemmer.
Yes.
Counselor Labarge.
Yes.
Counselor Maori.
Yes.
Counselor Moulton.
Yes.
Counselor Perry.
Yes.
Counselor Rothenberg.
Abstain.
Counselor Dobbs.
Yes.
And Counselor Elkins.
Yes.
Okay, that passes with 8 yes votes and 1 abstention. We look forward to a project happening there. Financial orders on first reading. And thank you, Director Mish.
Thank you.
The first one is 24.171, in order to reprogram money to NPS Energy Project account. And we have, who will be speaking to this from the mayor's office?
So we have a whole group of guests who are on Zoom. Director Nardi is here, as is Director Weil and Director McCarthy as well.
And Supervisor of School Maintenance.
Oh, yes. Yes. So, Director Nardi, would you like to speak first?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. This order was requested to reprogram some remaining funds and projects that were completed, and also projects that were voted back in FY 2023, but were not moved forward because we had change in our energy officer, and then there was a lull in projects that were identified, and now we are looking at things differently with CAPA coming in. Supervisor Kuzner's is working with Director Weil, and they would like to reprogram these funds to support ongoing energy projects at the Northampton Public Schools. In addition, there are some projects on the capital improvement program that will come forward for your consideration that they could use these monies and reprogram them for that purpose. So I will turn it over to the two of them to add any details to that. Thank you.
So welcome, Director Weil and Superintendent.
Hi there, I'm here as well. I can't get my video to work, but hope you can hear me.
We can hear you. Welcome.
All right, good. Thank you. Thanks for having me. So, yeah, as Charlene outlined, Ben and I have been kind of brainstorming and thinking about the school department moving forward with CAPA as we see it now, and things that we can do to better utilize existing funds from projects that were finished, and then reprogramming some funds projects that never really got off the ground through changeover with the energy officer and then some change in capital when it was being created. So creating a singular account gives us flexibility to move on projects quicker, and then working with Ben's department, them being able to plan a little bit quicker and utilize grants possibly better as well. We're looking also to use some of the money to replace a capital request that we would be moving forward for the Leeds School. So it would be a third phase of an energy project at Leeds. So this money, if reprogrammed, would fund that. And then it would give us some extra money left over to continue planning other projects.
Thank you. Director Weil?
So I think that was a good summary, and I'd love to be able to answer questions as you come up with them. But I wanted to emphasize a few of examples of how this worked. So one example of one of the sets of funds that was set aside was for design and for kind of like seed money in advance of applying for a grant for, in this particular example, a VRF, which is a type of heat pump system, and energy recovery ventilation system for Leeds Elementary School. But what actually happened, this is before I was a city employee, but I knew about it as a resident. The project was designed in such a way that it was going to cost about $1.5 million and that was going to be much larger than the size of the grant that the city would have applied for. So it was kind of back to the drawing board. So that's an example of something where I think it was like $60,000 or something was not spent. But that's actually wise, as it turned out, because then when CAPA and Central Services had a chance to really dig into it, we came up with a plan that accomplished the same thing, but actually does it for under the price that would allow us to then apply for this $500,000 grant that actually we are eligible for, and it would cover the entire cost. So some of this is savings that are fortuitous. Some of these other things are savings that, when you specify a project, you get your best estimate, and you need to request the entire cost. But then, once you've got that cost, you're also pursuing grants, you're also pursuing incentives, and you're trying to get all this other money in. And in fact, Central Services did a good job of that in many of these cases, and so a lot of the total cost came down. And of course, that rebate goes into the general fund. So in many cases, there were savings because you were able to do this, they get money back, basically, or get other incentives from elsewhere. And so an example of how this would help us is if we wanted to design a cooling and energy recovery system for, say, Jackson Street School, something that we're looking at now. We have to hire an engineering firm to do it, so we would put that onto the upcoming CIP, and we would then hopefully get the funding to do that. And then we find out the cost to do it, and then in the following year, we get the opportunity to request the actual financing for it. And yet that request is going to be out of sync with when the grants are available. But if we have this fund available, then we can actually hire the engineering firm to design us the project so that we're able to get the grant application in, because then we know what we're asking for in the grant application. And then we're able to come to City Council saying, here's how much we have in grant money, here's how much the rest of the project is, this is the actual cost. And then we end up not having to overshoot as much, and we also get to move an entire year faster. So that's just an example, but I'm happy to answer other questions.
Questions? Councilor Labarge. Is your hand up from earlier? Okay. Oh, I think you are. Okay, there you go. Councilor Labarge.
We heard tonight from a resident, Meg Robbins, and she had some great concerns here. Maybe you could talk about it. If not, Charlene is on Zoom tonight. She could step in on it. She has brought up some concerns she had, that she apparently asking that she had not heard of the NPS Energy Project account. She said it would be good to track down with capital planning accounts these are being drawn from, and why they are not using them as they were each earmarked critical for schools. She did bring up again tonight, in regards to a couple of things here. Has the school committee also been notified about what is going to be done? That is another question. She's asking that why would these schools need critical repairs and now not need critical repairs? So maybe you can answer that, or either Charlene. And what is the NPS Energy Project Fund? Why hasn't this gone before school committee first? Is from capital planning? Who is presenting it to that committee? Who is on that committee? She also, this is the part that I'm concerned about. She's also stating additionally the 14K grounds money for Tony, Northampton High School grounds, and Donna, DPW, to buy a cedar aerator is likely a good idea, but she is wondering about the $17,000 Tony gave
So,
unspent funds from his budget of 2024. Could you answer to that to DPW for a study on organic lush?
so Counselor, that is the next item. The question about the grounds. So we're just talking about the energy project right now. So you can ask that question when we get to the next item.
So I think I can answer some of the first question, and then some of this I think Charlene is probably better at answering.
Thank you.
So where the different sources of money came from, I was, and Tony and I were both trying to get at, which is that it's a variety of different projects, some of which were completed. In other words, they were deemed critical and they were completed, but we were able to get incentives, or we, and I say we, in this case, it may have been Central Services, it may have been Tony, were able to get a better deal. In other words, they were able to get it done for less money. And so sometimes, or in some cases, there's a way to design a solution to the same problem that just costs less. And so in all these ways where these incremental projects, the money, there was some left over for all these reasons, whether we got it as utility incentives or grants or buying it better, however it was done. And it was just sitting in these disparate accounts, not large enough in any one account to get a project done. But if it were combined into a single account that Tony had access to, then he could start to react to the needs that he faces today. Does that answer that part of the question?
Yeah, but I want to know also, was the school committee involved in this happening with this funding?
So I would just like to address, so this order tonight is not an appropriation. This is how we work with City Council. The mayor's office or the directors come to the mayor and they ask for orders to have funds reprogrammed. So right now we're not asking for an appropriation, we're just asking for the funds for projects that came forward in front of council that were voted. And as Director Weil said, they were either completed or completed with funds left over, or as we talked about, they were put on hold for different reasons because change in personnel and CAPA coming on board. That we would now are asking for those funds to be reprogrammed together. This is the process we follow for capital projects. And as they noted, now that we're working with CAPA, we're looking at our buildings differently. So I think the NPS or Northampton Public Schools Energy Project Fund, we're bringing forward to you tonight. No one's heard of it because we're bringing it forward tonight as an opportunity for a way to fund projects. And when we bring the capital plan forward, council will have the opportunity to hear about the projects, and it is up to the council whether they decide to fund and appropriate funds for those projects.
And I appreciate that clarification on this.
Yes, so tonight is just we're asking for the money to be moved together into a fund that we can then use. One of the items we will bring forward is for a capital, we've identified a capital project that this would be perfect for. And we would bring forward that order to you so that you can weigh in on that.
Right, because I was very concerned with her asking, was the school committee involved in this? Did they have any communication about this?
So I'm sure Tony works with the administration, but the facilities of the buildings is worked through, this is our normal procedure of working with Central Services and the mayor's office and city council. Generally, no, we don't put capital projects forward to the school committee. This has been our normal process.
Thank you so much, Charlene. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Councilor Elkins.
Two things. So, one, first of all, I want to thank Director Weil. It sounds to me that boil this down, and what we've heard tonight is that we've saved a lot of money, and that we've looked at things. This is exactly what we have CAPA director to do, which is to look at things holistically and systemically, and find out ways. It's always better to be spending somebody else's money. So if what we heard tonight is that we are well positioned to do what needs to be done to get them to really maximize our grant applications, which is something we hear about. I encourage everybody to tune in to NESC, Energy and Sustainability Commission meetings, where you can hear about this in insane detail. You won't believe how much detail. So I want to thank Director Nardi, Director Nardi, but also Director Weil for that work. And I'm supportive of the other thing. This is my third year in this process, and this process of taking these very discrete projects and however they come out. Sometimes we're reprogramming money because we need to move more money in to finish a project, and we're in a very good position. It's a very good problem to have, that we are in a position where things have come in under budget, so we're able to move money. I think it's a very good idea to do to consolidate this NPS fund in this way. It sounds like it makes the city more nimble in terms of developing these projects from soup to nuts, and getting them in the pipeline and getting them grant ready, shovel ready, as they say. I think that nimbleness is it's hard to come by in government, and it is something I think that we ought to do. So I'll be supporting that. And I don't wish to preempt anybody's discussion, so I know the discussion will continue. But I would actually move to move this to the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Elkins and seconded by Councilor Moulton. However, I ask that we continue the discussion and not vote on that. I have a question for Director Nardi. So to clarify, this money is being reprogrammed into a fund called NPS Energy Project, but none of it will be spent until the capital program and its associated orders come in. Do I have that right?
So it will be able to be used, as Director Weil noted, throughout the year, but we are bringing forward the project that we identified, the Leeds Cafetorium ERB project. We will bring that forward in the SIP for your consideration.
Okay, as Director Weil said, there'll be pre-work done, the engineering work and such, so that then we can apply for grants that will help with the...
Yes,
okay.
Thank you for that clarity, yes.
And then another question that I heard was about the general, how are we choosing to spend money at different schools? And is there a relationship between that and potential consolidation of schools in the future? Looking at the capital fund from last year, there's certainly significant, like Leeds School, is projected for fiscal year 2026, which we're about to work on. The new capital plan is everything will shift over. There are others, Jackson Street School, Ryan Road, Energy Management, but Leeds School is certainly seeing the bulk of that money. How are we making these decisions, given that we're also in the process of, a strategic plan and thinking about the future of our schools? I don't know if maybe the mayor and
Director Weil could probably speak to this best, but where he has been looking at all of the buildings, and there are some buildings or even sections of buildings that are easier to or more energy efficient now and easier to do work on to kind of get to a place where they are carbon neutral. So I think that is some of the calculation is, some sections of the buildings we can get this work done very efficiently. But Director Weil can speak to that.
Yeah, so there's a few things going on, and certainly not that we have two main things. We have schools that need to run right now and need to continue to run, and we need to keep those classrooms healthy and comfortable and working well. And we need to make investments, and we have to do this while this is fixing the ship while it's flying. And then of course we also have this long-term plan that is in the works, right? And that's going to be a community process that is only at its very beginning, that could involve consolidation, that could involve additions to some schools, that could involve changing all number of things. So we want to try and focus our resources on the school buildings that we know we think are very, very likely to be the ones that are going to be present in the future. So make good investments that last a long time. The reason you'd see so much at Leeds is because there's already been so much work done at Leeds, and part of that has to do with the strategic guidance that the city got. I'm going to say 2022. They had an architectural firm do a net zero study of what would it take to get the schools to operating at net zero, and the study looked at Bridge Street, Jackson Street, and Leeds. And the suggestion, partly because Leeds had already kind of made some moves, was to kind of do proof of concept at Leeds. And so it's going to take a while, because we're doing it in little increments where we can get a $200,000 grant, or $250,000 grant, or a $500,000 grant, and so you start to apply it, and then maybe you get an appropriation from the city, and you do some of that. So Leeds is now at a position where we need to finish the investment in basically the 1950s portion, which includes the cafetorium. And the reason for that is once you remove steam, once you're not able to use steam because you're not using it anymore in that section, all the components have to be together. And then once they're together, not only do you have guaranteed fresh air that's been tempered and is actually provided in the right quantities, but you're adding cooling. And then you've got at least that section right, and hopefully, and I think we're already learning some stuff, you figure out how to do it better, faster, and at lower cost at the next school, which would be, in this case, Jackson Street, because it's the next one that's very, very similar, and so you can kind of import those lessons learned and use them. So some of the reason for this attention is because you can't leave the job half done. You end up with a system that doesn't work very well, as opposed to getting the system that you want. And so we're kind of rolling through as fast as we could. Obviously, if we had endless money, we would try to do it all at once. But that's kind of the logic it's kind of dictated by the systems that already exist and what's required to get them to function, while getting really what we really want, which is high efficiency, comfort, and cooling, and good ventilation. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, it gives me a perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, I can just add one thing real quick. I think Ed mentioned. So Leeds was always our example. Leeds and Jackson, and primarily because of the steam systems they have. So Ben can maybe give some numbers, but they're the highest energy usage sections of each building that we own. So those were the two that were identified that we could make the biggest impact by making changes in those systems. So those are why we chose those two buildings. And like Bennett said, Leeds, we've done a lot of work, with the roof over the last 5 years, and the insulation that was increased there, insulation in the attic, which Ben had helped with. We just completed the window project, if you've been up there and seen the windows in the entire old section. So we've done it in phases, and it's laying groundwork for us in the future to see what will work, how we can do it, and then how we can do it in a short amount of time, in a summer period, or at off hours, schedule, which the logistics of are hard. So that we're learning a lot, like Dennis said.
Thank you. I think I saw Councilor Maori, and then we'll go to Councilor Mayor.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm glad about the energy savings and also about, keeping up with our climate and regeneration plan, which, does advocate for our schools going in this direction. I guess when I read this, what's hard for me is I can't tell by these projects how long-term they are. Because if they're longer-term investments, we may be reprogramming the money, but we are essentially choosing, projects and schools, and it does. So if they're, it's in a shorter term, I understand, but if these are long-term investments, we are essentially kind of making a statement about the schools, and that is something that I think I would like to know how school committee, would feel about that. So I guess I can't tell from this, I hear we're at the beginning of that process of kind of looking at our strategic, plan for the schools. But we kind of need that plan to feel comfortable with some of these longer-term investments. We need to know.
Could I respond to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's play out this plan. And let's imagine that the plan involves building like a brand new school, some sort of giant brand new school or whatever. That's not going to be available for anyone to go to school in for 15 years. So even these things that are, even if we ended up, you could say, throwing away this money after 15 years because we made a different decision, we still would have to get through those 15 years. And during those 15 years, here are the things that are coming. Among them is warmer summers and warmer shoulder seasons. I have never been to a school where I didn't have teachers tell me I need cooling. That it is the #1 request from any teacher I've ever encountered. and that's only going to get worse. And we're going to have this time period. And what we've learned, the hard way, I would say, is that the interim measures that we've tried to use, like portable air conditioners, I was actually in a few schools today, or 2 schools, and talked to 2 different custodians who talked about how ineffective these portable air conditioners were. And the reason is because we have a ventilation system, unlike ventilation in your house or something, which is just a little bit, it's accidental probably, we need 15 cubic feet per minute of fresh air per person in a class. And you get a class of, say, 20 people, that's a lot of air. And if it's hot, humid air, there's no way that these portable air conditioners can handle them. But if we design a system where we're covering the heat on the exhaust, so we're exhausting our stale air, but cooling the fresh air as it comes in, and we're transferring the moisture to the outgoing airflow, we lower that load, and so now a normal-sized air conditioner can actually provide cooling in that classroom, and that enables the whole thing. So that's why we have to do kind of whole systems together. And then once we've got them, then that's replicable. But we can't kind of pick and choose, one classroom here that gets half a system. You got to do the whole systems. Yeah, so that's in that sense, we're not making decisions that we aren't already making in inefficient ways now. And there's a really good chance, just because new schools cost a tremendous amount of money, that we're going to be retaining these buildings in some form or another, whether there's an addition on them or however we end up doing it. So I don't think it's I don't think particularly these buildings that we've kind of identified as being fundamentally good buildings and very usable and very fixable, that they're likely to disappear from the city's fleet entirely.
Councilor Mayor.
Yeah, just to clarify, Director, so you're saying that all these projects will have a somewhat soon or immediate benefit?
Faster we can get them in, yeah.
Right, so, but these aren't like super long-term. I mean, we will be, whatever our strategic plan for the schools is, you're saying that these will come into play most likely before that, or before that, those decisions.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, this goes back to the argument for the fund that allows us to deal with the asynchrony between the city's funding cycle and the grant funding cycle and the utilities award cycle, right? So we've got all these pockets of money that we're trying to access, and this fund, by giving the schools access to a fund, we're able to move faster, and so we're more likely to get this done in, say, 3 to 5 years instead of 5 to 10 years. And the sooner we get it done, the sooner we're getting classrooms with cooling and proper ventilation, as well as saving money in heating. And that's the other thing, is the money savings, right? So this is capital money, but the savings go into operational budgets.
Yeah.
You all done?
Yes.
Okay. I see Councilor Labarge.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Wall, for explaining what Councilor Muir had questioned. I have a question. We have 2 other schools, and when will you be getting at those?
You mean Bridge Street and Ryan Road?
No, I'm talking about Bridge Street, 2 schools on Ryan Road.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, so...
Because you're saying possibly 5 years or 6 years with 2 schools? I want to know the conditions of Bridge Street School and Ryan Road School.
Well, they are in different conditions. I'm a little hesitant to speak out of school, if you will, because these are discussions that people are still having. So I could give you my personal assessment, based on kind of my assessment of the buildings, which is not the only basis on which people might make a decision, right? So my assessment of the building of Bridge Street is that the old version, the old portion of the building is very repairable for something, but would be too small to be used as a school. And the 1990s edition is really awful. It's both thermally awful, it is bad for comfort, it is pedagogically awful. It's just not good. Again, this is, I have no say in this at all. This is just my evaluation of the building itself, is I would not want to invest in that building.
I'm interested in Ryan Road School.
Now, Ryan Road is an interesting one. It is not a terrific building, but it is a simple building. So a simple building, relatively simple. And so it's one that you could profitably invest in. And the question is, will you have a student population in that area large enough to justify it? Because that population is kind of aged out of elementary school. But certainly, if the decision were made we're really going to invest in this school, it is a possible thing to do, and we would learn a lot of lessons from that, right? So we'll learn a lot of lessons from not only what we do in well, I'm going to say the other hydronically heated buildings. We're going to learn lessons from what we do at JFK. We're going to learn lessons from what we do in the 1990s and 1970s portions of Leeds and Jackson Street. And various of those would apply at Ryan Road. And of course, we haven't talked about the other big investments that are required to maintain, not just kind of improve, but just really maintain the performance of JFK and the high school.
When you mention student population in Ward 6 aging out, I disagree with that statement. This is why I didn't want to speak out of school. I know, because I know my ward very well. It's a huge ward.
Yeah.
We have more population than Leeds has.
So
I was just concerned.
So again, I have no, that aspect of it is not an area where I have any real knowledge. So yeah, I like I said, I shouldn't have spoken out of school. But so it is a workable building, and has had some improvements. So some of the funds that are going into this fund that Tony and Charlene are putting together come from incentives that came back from the utilities after investments in Ryan Road.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilors. Councilor Rothenberg.
First a question and then some comments. Are there any limits on whether, let me put it this way, is there any circumstance in which after we reprogram these funds, the mayor will need to come back to us for any kind of approval having to do with consultants, engineers, or architects before money can be spent?
Director Nardi?
Thank you. So other than the capital project that we mentioned, no, we will not be coming back to the council for approval to spend the money.
Okay, and the follow-up question to that is, are there currently any architects, engineers, or consultants that you intend to work with this money? Because this order is very vague in that regard, and all of our orders typically are. But I'd like to know.
Would that be Director Weil?
I mean, that obviously that's a process that would work through Tony and through Central Services. I do not know of any at this time, but there may be some. Yeah, no. Generally, I would say we will begin a process to try and find the best architects or engineers for some of these projects.
Yeah, I'd say currently nothing, no.
Yeah.
And there is a required procurement process to determine who will be chosen.
Okay, thank you. So then I'll just move on to the comments. Those are all my questions. Yep. I hear just some language that is sort of, I think, part of the way that we do business, as you say. I heard phrases like, there's a long-term plan in the works that's going to be a community process. And I heard phrases like, these are discussions people are still having. And I just want to note, these are not discussions that the people of Ward 3 are having with you. And certainly, sort of as an anecdote, where I come from in the classical music world, a cello and its value and whether it's repairable has as much to do with the value of the beholder that they put on it. So I know of an instance where a guy had his cello broken into 1 million pieces because he was getting on a trolley in Hungary during the war that was just so crowded, and an ox cart hit him, and the cello broke into 1 million pieces, and someone built him a new cello. But I also know that the principal of the Los Angeles Philharmonic backed over a Guarneri, and people came from all over the world to see Humpty Dumpty put back together again because it was that precious to us. And so I really don't think that I like the sound of these long-term plans and these discussions happening without the people who use these schools. And I just feel disappointed that this is the way we are choosing to do business. There's nothing illegal about that. There's nothing procedurally that says you can't do it that way. But I just feel like it's a leadership gap And for this reason, I'm going to abstain, in addition to the fact that I don't know where this money is going, and I don't feel comfortable just signing blank checks. I would really like these orders to be more specific. Every time you come here and you ask for something, you get it. So I don't think there's ever going to be a delay. I would like to see you line some things up and be specific about what you want so that I know what I'm funding, because I'm just not comfortable just giving money to anybody, not knowing who they're friends with or anything like that. One of our only jobs is to be doling out money in a careful way. And I just can't be a part of it in this vague fashion. And I understand you have many reasons why it makes sense to do it this way. They don't satisfy Ward 3.
Director Nardi.
Yes, thank you. So I do want to say that part of this process is you know, a lot of the decisions are made in the mayor's office, and I mean, certainly the council doesn't want to micromanage that. And we do bring forward orders that are very clear about what we're purchasing through the capital plan. You know, all of the directors, it's a lengthy process. We go through all of that, and we bring it forward to you with specific orders on what we are purchasing. No, we don't bring forward who we're going to exactly work with in each and every instance, and that is because that really is not part of your role, in the sense that you appropriate the funds for a project, but you don't actually micromanage it, or at least that has never been the practice in the past, because we have directors and people in the city who are actually doing the detailed work and then presenting and reporting to you and responding to your questions on them. So I do feel like we bring it forward and give you all the details when we move forward with a project on what our plans are. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. And Councilor Moulton.
Yes, thanks. My takeaway from this discussion, or a chief takeaway, is that CAPA is working. CAPA was resulted from a grassroots initiative brought to the mayor by citizens that she embraced, and she has broad support for the mission of CAPA. And Director Weil has been charged with working with all municipal departments and getting them out of their silos. And it is encouraging to me that tonight we've heard from Tony Kuzniars, who works for Central Services, and Director Weil, and they've been working together. They've been saving money. They've been planning efficiencies to meet some of our energy and sustainability goals. So I'm encouraged by this discussion tonight.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I also, you know, and I've known Ben Weil for a while, and having served on the Energy and Sustainability Commission in my first term, I appreciate his perspective on these projects, and have trust that these are good projects to move forward. So I do feel comfortable moving forward with this. Councilor Maori.
Right. No, yes, I think these are all worthwhile projects. I guess my question is, with the motion on the floor, how do we feel as a council? I really want to know how my fellow councilors feel about whether this should be referred to the consent agenda or a subcommittee, finance, which would allow a little bit more interaction, since there's some concerns around it. I'd just like to address that. But personally, yes, I support these projects, and but my concern, I guess, is addressing that, that part of it. I think
I'll talk.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes. I have to say, I'm very pleased with Mr. Rock. Very, very pleased. Knowing him, working for the city for a period of time, of what he wants to do with our schools with energy. We're looking looking at saving money here, saving money, which is, we're in dire need to do that. I like what was presented tonight. My questions were answered. I'm happy with that. And I would like to see this go on to the consent agenda. I think an explanation has been done by our finance director, and also hearing from Tony, and also from Mr. Whale.
Councilor Clemmer.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm satisfied with the explanation, and, you know, this would speed up projects by years, not just, you know, a week or two or a month, you know, which is, you know, it makes a big difference, and it's going to save the city a lot of money. It'll give Director Weil and Tony access to the money quicker to get grants that we're losing out on now. And I'm part of NESC, and Director Will, in a short time he's been director, has saved a lot of money and found a lot of ways to improve things in Northampton. And I think this makes sense, and I would approve it tonight to the consent agenda.
Councilor Perry.
Yeah, so just to answer Councilor Maori's, I am comfortable putting this to the consent agenda. A lot of this is Councilor Elkins said, is being nimble, knowing that we can move these projects forward faster is important, not just for money, but talking about the people. You know, schools are not just, the money we spend and stuff, but like to know that we can provide relief and comfort to the students, to the teachers, and whatnot through these actions is very important. And really, the thing about governance is being, sometimes things get caught up in too many meetings and stuff, and you forget that people need relief right then. And so I am always, while responsible, but if we can responsibly make ourselves more nimble, let's go for it,
Councilor Maori.
Yeah, I hear you, but this wouldn't slow this down. It would just be a meeting. I heard an explanation from Director Weil, which I found very valuable, and I think another opportunity in a different setting for the public to hear that as well I don't really see the downside. But it's not about the projects, it's just, it wouldn't slow it down because it's just going to go on to the next meeting.
Still maintain the same time schedule.
Yeah.
Councilor Elkins.
I think if the public can be directed back to this conversation, I think we've vetted it. I don't think we're going to add more expertise to the question at a finance meeting, and I know I moved to put it on the consent agenda, so I'm prepared to vote. Yes.
Great. I wanted to add, thinking about the comments that Director Weil has a certain perspective, a very valuable perspective about energy use, but we will, and I trust that we'll make decisions about the future of school buildings based on a whole variety of criteria. And if Bridge Street, which has a great location, so many good things about that school, I trust that we'll make it work if we decide that that's part of our future. So I hear Councilor Rothenberg, your comparison about the cellos, and I think that needs to be how we make decisions, is not just based on one criteria.
I wanted to answer Councilor Maori's question.
Yep, Councilor Rothenberg.
I think I, in essence, agree with what you expressed, which is that you can be transparent and nimble at the same time. I would just like to see an emphasis on that. I don't think that the answers tonight were particularly clear about what exactly the long-term plan is and what exactly the conversations that have been going on are. I think you got a little peek into it. I think it's a step in the right direction. And I just also wanted to add, I just am inferring from a lot of the comments that I heard after I spoke that possibly you all think I was criticizing Director Weil or implying that he's some kind of person steering this of his own will. That's not how I feel. I feel that the mayor's office works in a certain way, and they follow their plans and they bring them to us and we fund them, and that's mostly what we're doing. And I just feel like that's just not enough. So I would definitely be against referring this to the consent agenda, because it's just such an easy opportunity to have one more public moment, one more interaction with the public that's advertised and noticed. And even that's not really enough. The turnout to these things are not great, and that's on us. But those are my feelings.
Thank you. Would anyone, Councilor Dubs?
Thank you. I would just first like to say that I am supportive of these projects. But also to answer Councilor Maori's question, I would have to agree with Councilor Maori and Councilor Rothenberg that I think that it won't slow things down very much to have just a little bit more discussion about this, through Finance Committee, for example. It would also give us an opportunity to get more feedback from the public on what they think about this, and possibly school committee members, and hear what they think about it. So while I am supportive of the project, I am also supportive of more discussion about it. So I would, for that reason, I would not want to send it to the consent agenda just yet. Thanks.
Has everyone weighed in on Councilor, who wants to weigh in on Councilor Maori's question? Did you want to speak more? Okay.
This is not to Councilor Maori's question, obviously, but I just want to answer that. So, of course, my office works with all of the departments in the city, and the people who run those departments are the experts in those fields. And I'm incredibly grateful for the caliber of experts that we have working for the city, and they bring remarkable technical expertise, as you've heard, really excellent project management experience, and also very strong financial principles that they use in making decisions and bringing them forward. So, this order came from Tony, who knows more about these buildings, these school buildings, than anybody else. That's what his job is, right? So this is his recommendation of what he would like to do, and he is a good, a large part of why these projects that are being reprogrammed were done so well, and there is money to reprogram from them. So I want to acknowledge his work and everyone else's work in the city. Yes, maybe the mayor's office or my name is on these, but this is work that's done by all these remarkable people who work for the city, and I'm just incredibly proud to serve along with such dedicated professionals who do this work with incredible love for our community.
Thank you. Councilor Rothenberg.
So to respond to that, essentially what we're saying is we would like to talk to Tony more, if that's the case. We want to know more about
Tony is here this evening.
Tony's here this evening. We're just hearing about this for the first time. If we can have another opportunity to review transcripts, send questions in advance, we would like to have as many opportunities to get as much insight as we can without slowing things down too much or at all.
Councilor Elkins.
I'd like to call the question.
In order to call the question, we need to have a vote.
Unless we were just going to vote.
All right, so to call the question, you would need that is a motion, and it needs to be seconded.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Elkins and seconded by Councilor Moulton to call the question on whether to refer this to the consent agenda. So we will. There's no discussion on calling the question, because otherwise you could basically talk forever. So we will have a vote that if it receives a 2/3 vote, meaning 6 of us vote yes, then we will proceed immediately to the vote about whether to refer this to the consent agenda. So does everyone understand now what we're voting on? Mm-hmm. Okay. Roll call, please, on calling the question.
Councilor Clemmer.
Yes.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes.
Councilor Maori.
Yes.
Councilor Moulton.
Yes.
Councilor Perry.
Yes.
Councilor Rothenberg.
Yes.
Councilor Dubs.
Yes.
Councilor Elkins.
Yes.
And Councilor Jarrett.
No. So that passes with, was that 8-1? Okay, we now have to vote without any opportunity for further explanation on the question of whether it's referred to the consent agenda.
Councillor Labarge.
Yes.
Councillor Maori.
No.
Councillor Moulton.
Yes.
Councillor Perry.
Yes.
Councillor Rothenberg.
No.
Councillor Dobbs.
No.
Councillor Elkins.
Yes.
Councillor Jarrett.
No.
And Councillor Clemmer.
Yes.
That passes 5-4. It will appear on the consent agenda of our next meeting, where it can be removed and there can be further discussion. All right, we move on to the next, which is 24.172, an order to reprogram NPS projects to NPS grounds account. And first reading. And do we have the same set of folks who are speaking to this?
Yes,
Okay, who would like to go first?
if I may.
Yes.
So this order is similar. We have some projects that were completed and we have leftover funds that Supervisor Kusniers is asking to be consolidated into the NPS Grounds Fund. This is an existing account. This fund was actually, there was a question about this back in April of 2024. Supervisor Kusniers brought forward a request to rename the NPS Grounds Equipment account to the NPS Grounds account. It had $16,000 in it. That was brought forward at his request with a recommendation from the mayor. The council voted it. Since that time, we have spent $11,346 of that $16,000. So there is about $5,000 left in that account, and now we are requesting that these additional funds, as listed in the order, are added to that account for the purpose of continuing, for the same reasons, for using it for grounds maintenance, for equipment, and also feasibility studies and materials and the like. So it's just to continue the work that we discussed back in April. And again, I will turn it over to the supervisor to discuss it more. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah, I think Charlene outlined it pretty well. These are leftover funds and accounts that projects that were done. The vehicle line, for example, though, is some incentive money that came back as a rebate on an EV van that we purchased. So it's just reusing these funds into something that we have a high need for. So it's in support of the organic program at the high school. My operational budget is not able to support that fully right now. So I've been looking at ways that I can do it. And one of the purchases I need to make is for an additional aerator overseer that will help support that program at the high school. So, and these funds will help purchase that.
Thank you. Questions?
May I just, excuse me,
Yes.
may I just add on to there, again, just to clarify, we are not asking for an appropriation tonight for that purchase. That will come through the capital improvement program so that the council members may weigh in on it as well. So the same circumstances before. We're only asking for you to move the money tonight, not to actually make an appropriation for the purchase of the project that we mentioned in the order.
Again, sorry if that wasn't clear, Charlene.
No, I just wanted to clarify in case that came up. You did. Thank you.
I have a question.
Thank you. Councilor Rothenberg.
Thank you. Tony, Mr. Kusniers, if I'm saying that right. I'm wondering.
Very good. Yes, thank you.
Oh, good. I'm wondering, and I appreciate the efforts that you're making and you're being thoughtful about what equipment you'll need to follow through with the pesticide, recommendations. I'm wondering if you've been in touch with the committee recently that was working on this, and if they're in support or if they have extra thoughts.
Yes, I'm part of that committee as well.
Great. And everybody's happy with this, Adele and Cindy and everyone?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, this piece of equipment supports the program as outlined.
Okay. I'm going to take your word for it. Thanks for coming tonight.
You're welcome.
Is that Councilor Perry? Oh, okay. Councilor Maori.
Yeah, I have a question that was brought up earlier by Councilor Labarge, I believe. We're just curious about the study. Let's see. there was a study for the use of organics that was, Councilor Labarge, wasn't that your question? $17,000 that you were,
That was a question, Counselor, that
Right.
Meg Robbins had brought up, which was about, I think this is what you're talking about. She had mentioned something about the additional 14K grounds money for Tony for the Northampton High School grounds.
yeah.
And then also with Donna from DPW to buy a seeder and aerator. Is like, she thought it was likely a good idea, but wondered about that 17,000 Tony gave. This is what you were looking for. And unspent funds from the budget 2024 to DPW for a study on organic last July.
Director Nardi?
So yes, thank you. So this again was the order I talked about in April that was approved, and it was the remaining amount of $16,947.92 from the Northampton Public Schools grounds equipment account to be reprogrammed for purposes of district-wide field renovations, funds to be used for addressing the softball and baseball fields, and for additional studies on organic field maintenance. And as I mentioned, since that time, we have spent $11,346 per that order. Now we're moving forward with an additional order to put more money in there to do more work. But the work was done as requested back in April.
Thank you.
Councilor Maori?
Yeah, but what about the study? Was the study done?
I'll let Tony speak.
Yeah.
I think it was you're combining two different groups and two different studies.
Okay.
So Donna had hired, I believe it was Ty and Bond, that did a study of all city fields and parks, which was completely separate from what I do on the school side. So we weren't part of that study in any way.
Was that part of the select committee's work? Maybe that was separate too. I vaguely remember that. The select committee on pesticides, that was a while ago. I'm dating myself.
A while ago, where then the school committee adopted the city's policy on pesticide reduction, and is what we've been implementing on the school side.
Thank you so much.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, so we can refer this to the consent agenda of our next meeting or to finance. Entertain a
Move to
motion.
refer to the consent agenda.
Motion made by Councilor Maori and seconded by Councilor Labarge. Any discussion on referring to the consent agenda? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Councilor Maori.
Yes.
Councilor Moulton.
Yes.
Councilor Perry.
Yes.
Councilor Rothenberg.
Yes.
Councilor Dubs.
Yes.
Councilor Elkins.
Yes.
Councilor Jarrett.
Yes.
Councilor Clemmer.
Yes.
And Councilor Labarge.
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. We'll discuss that, or it'll be on the consent agenda to our December 19th meeting. Next is 24.173, in order to reprogram funds for Gare garage repairs. And who would like to speak to this from the mayor's office?
Hi, so it's me again. So as part of the FY 2025, as it states in the order, we had several orders for the Gare Garage, and in looking at the specifics of these and putting it out to bid, Central Services Director Pat McCarthy has requested that we combine these funds and reprogram them and address a deficit for the entire, putting the project out altogether. So that is the order we put together, and I will certainly let Director McCarthy answer any questions. But as we all know, the projects are coming in a lot higher than we expect. So therefore, this order reprograms some funds, combines them all together to do one project, and asks you to fund the deficit by the remaining funds. And then using parking receipts, appropriating money from the parking receipts to fund it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Councilor Elkins, then Councilor Rothenberg.
Yeah, I just want to say that I'd be in favor of, and this isn't a motion yet, but I'd be in favor of moving this to the consent agenda. This is work in a particular project that we have been talking about for a long time, and it is a particularly compelling need. It comes in direct response to some terrible tragedies that have occurred, and also there's the general maintenance in the garage. It needs the work, so it's disappointing. I mean, the offset of money that we've saved elsewhere on other projects through the good work of our city employees working on that end, if we're still in this position that a project like this comes in over budget. So I think this is one that we ought to move along as quickly as possible.
Councilor Rothenberg.
Yes, I just had two questions. One for Central Services. I may have misread the order, but is part of what we're reappropriating money that you would have used to buy a piece of equipment that you needed to replace? And are you okay on that? Because again, I never think that we're really that short on money, so I want to make sure you're not giving up anything you also need in addition to this. And Councilor Moulton, are you satisfied? I know that this was something you spoke to in particular during, budget season or SIP season, so I just wanted to hear your thoughts.
Okay, well, you've asked two different people, two different questions. So I guess, why don't we have Director McCarthy respond first?
Hi.
Welcome, Director.
For some reason, I can't get the video to work. So, anyways, can you ask that question again, Counselor?
Yes, was there something about like a Kubota or some piece of equipment you had to give? Oh, here it is. To reprogram the $30,000 for the purchase of a Kubota to replace the toolcat. So I was just wondering, are you going to be okay without that piece of equipment? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, again, this was money left over that was not spent that we want to spend in the parking department, and we thought this was a good way to.
I see. Okay, so you got the Kubota, and there was just $30,000 left over. Is that right?
Yeah,
okay. Thanks. All right, Councilor Moulton.
Councilor Moulton.
Thank you. Yes, I did want to speak to this. And yes, Councilor Rothenberg, I am very happy to see this tonight. As Councilor Elkins said, the safety improvements are, in my opinion, overdue. And I'm speaking also on behalf of a constituent who I've communicated with during my 3 years on the council, who has advocated for this now for 15 years. Her son died in a fall from the garage in 2009. So it's very much needed. And the question that I have for Director McCarthy is, you seem optimistic that by bundling these projects together, there may be some savings.
Yes. We have the three components are the guardrails over the stairwells, the painting of the stairwells, and also the roofs. I don't know, the bidding atmosphere is difficult, and something's happening here. You can still hear me, right?
Yep.
Yep. Yes, okay, sorry. So the guardrails were bid, and the bids came in 3 times higher. And basically, it's because iron workers, steel workers, blacksmiths can pretty much name their price now. There's plenty of work out there for them, and there's a lot of need for their work. So the price is, this is a relatively small project. It is not the entire top floor of the garage. It's just the stairwells. So for that reason, we thought the bids came in high. We did bid the painting, but we received no bids. And while we were going through the process of bidding these 2 things, someone got up on one of the stairwell roofs, and I don't know if it was done intentionally or by mistake, but there were cuts in the roof membrane, and the roofs immediately started to leak. So we have temporarily patched them, but we wanted to include that in this work, being that it's, you know, once the roofs are done, the guardrails will protect them. Did I answer your question, Councilor?
Yes, thank you. I hope that by bundling these, we do elicit some bids that are more reasonable for all of this work taken together. And however the bids come in, I really feel strongly that it's important to get those safety improvements done during this current fiscal year.
Mayor Shara?
Yeah, I just want to thank Director McCarthy, who's been working on this. So 3 years ago, I asked him to figure out how we can make the garage safer, and the bids have just been so high, and he just keeps going back and working on it and making this happen. And so I just really want to appreciate how hard he's worked on this and his tenacity to make it happen and find a way. It's, you know, he knows how important it is and how much it means to this particular constituent, but also to so many people who really have been fighting for this for a long time. So thank you, Director.
Thank you. Councilor Labarge.
Yeah, thank you. Patrick, thank you very much for bringing this order in. I am glad to see what is included here for the addition to $20,600 for reprogramming the safety of that garage. As a city councilor, I have heard this before, and there was an incident that occurred. And this is a safety issue here, and I'm going to support this 100% because of knowing what had happened there, and it is a safety issue. So I think this is a good start here. I want to thank you and your staff for implementing and taking care of the safety issues at the garage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, nice to see you.
For some, I guess, yeah, never mind.
Yeah.
The co-host had to give me permission, I guess, to start the video.
Thank you.
So that's what it said. Thank you.
Yes, Mary, Councilor.
I like that. I know, my last name's fun to say, isn't it? So I was just going to say that I support this going to the consent agenda, but I do need to push back. I mean, it's not more quick, you know, it's not done more quickly if it isn't referred to a subcommittee. I mean, we have our subcommittees. This is a financial order. If we refer something to the finance committee, it gets back by the next meeting. I just, you know, since the public's watching, I don't want to start some idea that the quickest way to get things done is to forego our subcommittees. Our subcommittees, by and large, can meet in between meetings.
So, would there be a motion for referral?
I'll move to refer.
Agenda.
I'll second that then.
Okay. You started first. So, motion made by Councilor Perry and seconded by Councilor Elkins. Further discussion on this item? Okay, roll call, please.
Councilor Moulton.
Yes.
Councilor Perry.
Yes.
Councilor Rothenberg.
Yes.
Councilor Dubs.
Yes.
Councilor Elkins.
Yes.
Councilor Jarrett.
Yes.
Councilor Clemmer.
Yes.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes.
And Councilor Maori.
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously and will be on the consent agenda of our next meeting. Our last financial order is 24.174, an order to reprogram funds to IT Integrated Municipal Data System account. And I believe we have the director here. Who would like to speak to this?
So again, this is just a similar order that we're reprogramming funds left over from another project for the purposes listed in the order. And again, I will let the CIO speak to it.
Yeah, so we have noticed there are a few funds left over. One is from 2022, the other is from 2020, and they refer to upgrades that were done at that time. A few months back, we received a request from the assessor's office to upgrade the IS World, which is one of their main applications to assess property value. The current version that we run is 4 times by older than the most current one, and that caused some issue for the department. So they're not really able to work well with it. The application has almost reached the end of support by the vendor, which is Tyler. And the new version will not only add additional security and compatibility, will also add a few features that they would desire. The upgrade itself, there's no cost for the upgrade itself, but it requires some help from the vendor to implement because it's quite complex. The amount is not significant, and the IT department would like eventually to use some of this capital to cover that upgrade, and the cost of the upgrade will be a little higher than the amount, and will sacrifice some of our operational budget coverage.
Thank you, Director. Are there any questions about this order? Okay, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to refer.
Move to refer to the consent.
I'll second that.
Oh, man. All right. I always give the Zoom person some credit because there's a delay. So, motion made by Councilor Elkins, Councilor Elkins, and seconded by Councilor Dubs. Or was it Stan? It'll be. I think you'll be okay. Either way. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please, on referral to the consent agenda for next meeting.
Councilor Perry?
Yes.
Councilor Rothenberg?
Yes.
Councilor Dubs?
Yes.
Councilor Elkins?
Yes.
Councilor Jarrett?
Yes.
Councilor Clemmer?
Yes.
Councilor Labarge?
Yes.
Councilor Maori?
Yes.
And Councilor Moulton?
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. It will appear on the consent agenda of our next meeting. And thank you to all the staff who stayed this long. How's everyone doing? Does anyone need a recess?
Do we have a 5-minute recess, please?
Yes, 5-minute recess. We'll be back at 9:51.
For what?
Okay, welcome back to the Northampton City Council. We now move on to ordinances not yet referred. And this is 24.170, fossil fuel-free construction ordinance per Massachusetts fossil fuel-free demonstration program. This is in first reading. And I believe that this is sponsored by Councilors Maori and myself and Mayor Shara. And Councilor Maori, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, this is an ordinance that's been in the making for a long time now, and was started, the whole process of applying to be a model community was a resident-driven process, and it was a great show of how residents can make things happen, because it eventually was taken on by all of us. But I would like to thank Adele Franks especially for her tenacity in getting us this far. So this is a kind of a companion ordinance that is part of the obligation of our model community status, we've been accepted into the model community project program, but we need to pass this ordinance within 90 days. That puts us in January, and since we actually wrote the first draft of this ordinance, we've added to our We've adopted the stretch code, and so some of these things may be complementary in our regeneration plan and our stretch code, and some might duplicate part of that. But it's the reason we're doing it now is because it's part of the process of becoming a model community. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that for now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I want to thank Councilors Maori and Elkins and Mayor Shara and the previous council for the original ask for the special legislation. And also thanks to Director Weil and everyone who moved this along for us to apply to be one of the 10 communities that are part of the state's demonstration project. I attended a meeting with the state regulators and along with the mayor and others to really convince them that we should be one of these 10 communities. It's very evident to me that state and local action is critical on climate, especially with the upcoming federal administration. But cities are a significant percentage of the fossil fuel, of the carbon emissions of this country. And if we can get cities to move, that will make a big difference. And so, what this does is, so we need both to phase out our existing fossil fuel infrastructure, and what this does is says we're not going to build new fossil fuel infrastructure. That essentially we're just going to have to phase out. And with the gas moratorium, fossil fuel free is more cost effective in new construction in almost every case. So the next step in this is a referral to Legislative Matters. And we want to make sure that there is an opportunity to bring in stakeholders, because although in some cases this is a template ordinance that the state gave us, but they allow us to do certain exemptions, and so different communities can and they also allow us to define fossil fuel free, and how there's a minimum definition, and then we could add to it as well. So in Legislative Matters, and I hope that we get to go into the details of that. And I'm really happy that because Counselor Maori and Counselor Elkins and I are all on legislative matters. We actually can't talk about this. I mean, I can't talk with Counselor Elkins or Counselor Perry, except here and in legislative matters. So I'm really excited as one of the sponsors, one of the sponsors of the original ask to have your input, and of course to have the rest of the council's input, and Councilor Clemmer, who also serves on the Energy and Sustainability Commission. So I look forward to working together on it. Mayor Scher, would you like to say anything before?
I'll just echo the thanks and just add another one, which is to thank Representative Sabadosa and Senator Comerford, who really went to bat hard for us and rightfully for their districts, right? That they didn't feel like it was right that there wasn't a Western Mass community in this demonstration project, and so they fought hard, and so I'm really grateful to them that they really took that on.
Yeah. Thank you. Councilor Elkins.
So, two things. One is so many people have touched this in some form or another between NESC and the council and other iterations of this, the adoption of the stretch code that we've already put in place, and this is so great, and it's been one of the things I'm proudest of to have participated with. I echo the mayor's remarks about Representative Sabadosa and Senator Comerford. Representative Sabadosa was great, and Alex and I testified on Zoom about asking to be included in this. Actually, we were specifically asking that they expand the program to allow more in, as I recall, and that guy did not want me to talk so much. He wanted me to be quicker, but the one thing that I thought I saw his eyebrows go up on is when I said, it's ridiculous that there's no Western Mass community on this, and I felt like that was the one thing that made him stop a little bit. So I also thank Representative Sabadosa for making that a great learning experience. I was glad to be able to participate in that. And so then the second thing would be, I would like move to refer this to legislative matters.
I would second that.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Elkins and seconded by Councilor Perry. Further discussion. Councilor Rothenberg.
Yes, I just wanted to, if it would be procedurally appropriate, lay out a few of the questions sort of in advance that I would like to see covered at that.
Yeah,
meeting.
absolutely.
Okay, so I really want to be able to take this back to my constituents and help them understand. I don't want us to be so climate activist centric that we assume that everybody is following this and on board with this, right? So I think there's still constituent work to do. Mm-hmm. So what I anticipate people being concerned about in Ward 3 are the impacts on the homeowner, right? And so in what way is this different from the stretch code? And also, insofar as we've been following the stretch code for a while, what have we learned about how that has impacted the everyday homeowner? What does a major renovation mean to them? And what is the state doing for us, right? Again, don't presume that we all have background in this. And finally, I did already hear from someone, all the other communities doing this are wealthy. And I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't looked into it. But I think that's the concern, right? So it's basically a cost concern. I heard you say something like it's more cost effective in almost every case. And, I just want to know more about that. And what cases is it not? Who is this benefiting besides Mother Earth, which we're happy about? But those are my general questions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I don't know if I'll be able to attend, but if you might be able to cover those, I'll listen back.
Absolutely. Okay. Other questions you want us to cover or other comments before we vote on referral? Okay, so a roll call, please, on referral to legislative matters.
Okay. Councilor Rothenberg.
Yes.
Councilor Dobbs.
Yes.
Councilor Elkins.
Yes.
Councilor Jarrett.
Yes.
Councilor Clemmer.
Yes.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes.
Counselor Maori,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton.
Yes.
And Counselor Perry.
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously and will be referred to legislative matters. The date has not been set. So
I would like to, I wanted to touch base with you guys, and also maybe Director Mish. I guess I just wonder, because we can put it on for, so my first question is what is our timeline? What is the 90 days by which we have to pass it?
January 27th.
January 27th. So the only thing that I'm thinking, and I really don't want to talk about it right now, is just whether or not it makes sense to front load a little more time and schedule that meeting in early January. Because you guys, it sounds like you guys are still tweaking some, and there's still some time for like input, but maybe I'm wrong.
I would say that yes, we're talking with Director Weil and with Attorney Seawald to see if we can get the language on some of the exemptions clearer. But we also can do that work, and I think having public input at legislative matters will be useful. If we're not ready after one legislative matters session, we could bring it, delay. We don't have to finish.
Do more, or we could also bring it back to full council and talk more. That's fine. I'm fine either way, just in terms of whether or not we schedule it in addition, because we have a legislative matter, that joint meeting on Monday.
Oh, right, yeah.
And
it's too late for that one.
I understand that. And Laura, to her credit, was trying to get me to see if maybe we might want to add it on as early as a Monday, although I think there's some details and stuff.
Yeah,
I think that would have been a little rushed.
Anyway.
So I'll circle back to you guys, and we can find a date before I'm happy to do it before the end of December. I just wanted to defer to you guys as to whether or not
Yeah,
you thought there might
absolutely.
be more work, more use for the time if we aimed for the very early January. So TBD.
Sounds good. Okay, well, brings us to our last item on the agenda, which is 24.166, an ordinance relative to multi-way stop signs on Hatfield Street at Cook Avenue. This is now in second reading, and the referral to legislative matters was waived. And is there any discussion on this?
Just wanted to thank the resident who made a public comment. That was very helpful to me. I wish we always heard from some kind of neighborhood representative. So thank you.
Councilor Moulton.
Yes, I want to reinforce what we heard earlier from I think her name is Jessica Morris, who lives at Pines Edge. The only reactions that I've gotten in the last 2 weeks have all been positive. I've received a number of emails from residents of that neighborhood reacting positively to the temporary four-way stop and asking that it be made permanent, including from Pat O'Reilly, who is the liaison between the Pines Edge Condo Association and city officials. And she informed me that the Condo Association had its annual meeting in mid-October. All residents in attendance had nothing but praise for how well the stop signs have improved the safety at this intersection. They also unanimously expressed their sincere desire that the city make this a permanent change. So I would move approval of the permanent four-way stop at Cook and Hatfield.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Moulton and seconded by Councilor Elkins. Further discussion? Okay, seeing none, roll call please on approval of 24.166.
Counselor Dobbs.
Yes.
Counselor Elkins.
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett.
Yes.
Counselor Clemmer.
Yes.
Counselor Labarge.
Yes.
Counselor Maori.
Yes.
Counselor Moulton.
Yes.
Counselor Perry.
Yes.
And Counselor Rothenberg.
Yes.
That passes unanimously. And that's all on our agenda, so
I will move to adjourn.
Motion
Second.
made by Counselor Perry and seconded by Counselor Elkins. Roll call on adjournment, please.
Counselor Elkins.
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett.
Yes.
Counselor Clemmer.
Yes.
Counselor Labarge. Counselor Maori.
Yes.
Counselor Moulton.
Yes.
Counselor Perry.
Yes.
Counselor Rothenberg.
Yes, thank you, Laura.
You're welcome.
Okay, that's
Thank you.
unanimous. We are adjourned. Good night.